I'd like to call the Board of Governors meeting to order. Ms. Gomer, will you take the roll, please?
Joe Abelos, Jeffrey Baum,
Here.
Joseph Belansky, Scott Budnick, Jeff Burdick, Connie Conway, Iman Dalili, Tom Epstein, Cecilia Estelano,
Here.
Danny Hawkins, Pamela Haynes, Hassan Khan, Deborah Malamed, Jennifer Perry, Gary Reed, Valerie Shaw, Nancy Sumner.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. We will move to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have made a tradition of our newest member always leads us in the pledge, so I'd like to welcome our newest member, Iman Dalili. Thank you, Member Dalili. I'd like to open my president report by formally welcoming you to the Board of Governors and thanking the Governor of the state of California for appointing you to this body. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and offer greetings.
Why isn't it? Oh, perfect. Perfect. My apologies. Thank you so much, President Baum. It's an absolute honor to be here. I'd like to thank the Chancellor's Office, the Governor's Office for this appointment. I truly believe that this is the greatest system of higher education in California and in the nation, and to be able to be of any sort of positive attribution to that is absolutely amazing and an unfathomable honor. So I thank you for that.
Did you want to say a little bit about where you're at school and
So I'm from El Camino College. I'm a business administration major. This would be my third year and probably my last. And I hope to transfer to UC Berkeley in high school business.
And I understand you're also the student body president at El Camino.
Yeah, I'm the student body president of El Camino College this year, and previously I was on the board of trustees last year.
Fantastic. Welcome. We're delighted you're here. In addition, I wanted to first off thank Woodland College for welcoming us today, and President Michael White. We had a fantastic tour and met many of the amazing and inspiring faculty and staff who are working so hard to carry on the mission of the California Community Colleges. And so Michael White and Chancellor Houston, you really have a first-rate team here, and we felt that the red carpet's been rolled out, but not just for us, but we could see that the red carpet's rolled out every day for all the students that are privileged to go to school here, and we're delighted to be here and look forward to hearing more about the Woodland College and the district later on in the program. Other items I wanted to share with the Board of Governors. As we concluded the legislative term, and I know that we are going to be hearing more about the bills that are pending before the governor and others, I did want to take a moment to recognize a couple of legislators that will be retiring at the conclusion of this term who've been extraordinary champions for California community colleges. One is Senator Marty Block, obviously, who spearheaded so much that for our system and helped get the baccalaureate degree program off the ground. Another is my hometown Senator Carol Liu, who was instrumental in delivering so much in the way of student success legislation. She chaired the Education Committee and has been a steadfast supporter of the system. And Chancellor Skinner and I have talked about how do we recognize individuals who've been extraordinary advocates, and so we'll be drafting a letter on behalf of the system and presenting it to each of them, and also in consultation with some other members of the legislature who may be leaving, but to express the appreciation not only of the system but of all the students who have benefited from an improving system for California community colleges. So I just wanted to say a word of thanks on behalf of the system to each of them and the other legislators who are retiring who've been very supportive. I wanted to inform the rest of the board that the contract for our incoming chancellor has been signed and executed, and we look forward to welcoming our new chancellor, Eloy Oakley, in December. And so that was some unfinished business from the last meeting, but that's all been squared away. And then lastly, I just wanted to report that last week, and you'll hear more about it from Chancellor Skinner, I had the opportunity to attend the public announcement that Pasadena City College was named one of 2 finalists for the Aspen Prize for College Excellence. One of 2 California finalists. There were 10 total finalists. And that was a very wonderful development, because I remember when I became president of the board 2 years ago, not a single California community college was named among the finalists. We've had other colleges recognized in the past, but it's important I think it's important for the nation to recognize the excellence of California community colleges, and to have 2 of the 10 finalists come from our system is something that is a special achievement that is shared not only by those campuses who have done extraordinary work to achieve that recognition, but also extraordinary recognition for the entire state system. And I was grateful to see that recognition. And that's not a program that is just simply a popularity contest. There's a rigorous quantitative assessment that each of the colleges go through as they get evaluated. And so it was wonderful to see that the numbers and the outcomes and the results are being witnessed at those 2 institutions, as well as many others across the state of California. And that concludes my report. Chancellor.
Thank you, President. President Baum, members of the board. See if there we go. I got a few items to include in my report, but at first I'd like to welcome aboard our newest member. Welcome aboard Member DeLilly. We look forward to working with you, and let us know what we can do in the Chancellor's office to support you. So in terms of picking up on the Aspen Prize, it is incredibly exciting, quite an honor for our system to have 2 nominees. This is the Aspen Award is arguably the most prestigious community college award in the nation, focusing on innovation and effectiveness. And so the 2 colleges that were nominated are Pasadena City College and Chaffey College. At Pasadena City College, it's a program that has achieved significant gains in closing achievement gaps within their STEM programs. And at Chaffey College, they have a model of accelerated instruction in which they use an 8-week term in order to facilitate their students' progress towards their educational goals. So in both those cases, very exciting programs, as Member Baum pointed out, backed up with data, really showing that these programs are having direct impacts on students. And so we will go through a process of mining those programs, as we've done in recent years, really looking for best practices and models that we can use to expand across our system and to disseminate them through our institutional effectiveness work and other mechanisms to try to build off that success. So again, a great day for those colleges, and it reflects well on our system. So congratulations. I wanted to note that I had the honor last week of participating in some events on Wednesday around some college promise programs, and it was a big day for our system. We had had Dr. Jill Biden, Vice President Biden, out here in California, and she started off the day with an event at LA City College. The LA Community College District is rolling out a promise program that they've set up in collaboration with LAUSD and with the City of Los Angeles to really, create some more effective and clear pathways for Los Angeles residents to get to college, to attend their local community college. And there are many features of that pathway program, because essentially that's what I think good promise programs are, pathway programs, where it's not just the financial aid, but it's the other communication, support, services, counseling along the way. But their promise program will provide a tuition-free first year of college for all LA residents who enroll at one of the LA Community College District community colleges. So it was a power-packed morning, great presentations. In addition to Dr. Biden, there were presentations by LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, of course, Chancellor Francisco Rodriguez, LAUSD Superintendent, and sorry if I forgot other people, but it was a star-studded morning, and they had that auditorium rocking as they rolled this out. It was an exciting event. And then a group of us headed up to Silicon Valley, where we had a chance to meet with Silicon Valley business leaders to also talk about College Promise programs. Dr. Biden presided over that. There were well over 100 Silicon Valley business leaders in the room, all very excited about learning about College Promise programs and figuring out what they could do to support those programs. Board member Tom Epstein was there as well. It was, again, a great event. We had the mayor of Oakland, the mayor of San Jose, Assemblymember Lowe. It was quite an impressive gathering there, much more of a business-like kind of a conversation. The morning was a rally, and the afternoon was more of a planning session. But again, a big day for the community colleges, and a big day for College Promise programs in California. I think we're going to hear a lot more about those in the future. And lastly, I was just briefly going to note that our office the Chancellor's office has been engaged in efforts across the state to assist students affected by the closure of the ITT campuses. And it's a challenging, extremely challenging situation. Nationwide, roughly 35,000 students were affected when ITT closed its doors after pretty intense accreditation scrutiny. In California, there are 4,500 students affected at 13 campuses. And since the closure on September 6th, our office has been involved working with not only the U.S. Department of Education, the State Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education, Governor's Office, local colleges, and others to try to coordinate a response. And these students are left in an incredibly difficult position. And unfortunately, there aren't easy answers. I think the best we can do is to put them in touch with resources, with counselors, with other avenues to continue their education. And that's what we're doing. And our colleges have really stepped up. We've organized a series of regional events with special outreach to these students to get them out, to have them connect with resources and information counselors so that they can make some good choices for themselves. And I would just note, in our office, it's been an effort that's cut across the different divisions. It's involved academic affairs and student services and governmental relations, but in particular, Vice Chancellor for Communications and Marketing, Paul Feast, has stepped up and been our coordinator on that. Has put in a lot of hours and just done an exceptional job. So I just would like to recognize him for that hard work. And with that, wraps up my report.
We have one other item to report, though, on the senior staff, a new addition.
Yes, some good news to share. Our acting general counsel, Jake Knapp, his wife had a baby last week. And so we've got a new member to the community college family. And so Jake is not with us today. He's at home where he should be with his wife and new child. And so congratulations to Jake. He's going to be out for a few weeks here, I think probably about 2 weeks, and then he'll be back in the saddle. But while Jake is away, thankfully we've got Peter Knapp, Peter Kang, our attorney, who's with us here today and to provide us with sound legal advice. And so Peter, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, and please convey our congratulations to Jake and his wife. It's wonderful news. Now we move on. I'd like to invite Chancellor Doug Houston to come forward and turn the agenda over to him. Well, thank you, Chancellor Houston.
Thank you, President Baum, Vice President Estolano, members of the Board of Governors, Chancellor Skinner, system staff. Would like to, first of all, welcome you to Woodland Community College and to the Yuba Community College District. And on behalf of the governing board of the Yuba Community College District, some of whom you'll meet this evening, Really want to thank you for taking the time to hold your meeting here. We're honored, deeply honored to have you take the time to spend on our campus, to convene your governance and your business here, and it is our pleasure to host you. If I could take just a few minutes to orient you to the Yuba Community College District. You've seen Woodland Community College. Woodland Community College is one of the newest colleges in our system, but our district is actually one of the oldest. The district was initially established in 1927, Yuba College, as part of the Marysville Unified School District, separated in the 1930s. We did not become multi-college until the accreditation of Woodland Community College in 2008. We've got a few attributes that we're rather proud of. We have the second largest physical geography of any community college district in the state, but we serve more counties than any other college district in the state. And we have campuses in each of 5 counties, and we serve portions of 3 more. Certainly makes the election periods interesting to navigate the expectations of all the counties that we serve. That said, we are considered a small college district under the funding formula, so just under 8,000 students. Our highest level of enrollment was about 8,400 full-time equivalent students before the recession. We're slowly climbing back to that, about 14,000 head count. 7 elected trustees. We actually have 2 student trustees on our governing board, one from each of our 2 main colleges. Each college has a center that it operates and an outreach site. And I'll orient you briefly to our district and where the colleges are. We span the Sacramento Valley between the 2 mountain ranges and serve the agricultural communities that are just north of the Sacramento Valley and the value-added ag chain from the North State down into the Sacramento region. This is our district boundaries. The green crosses represent the colleges, the orange triangles are the centers, and the yellow diamonds are the outreach sites. And again, we have facilities in 5 counties. Yuba College in Yuba County, one of the oldest colleges in the state, first established in 1927. One of those buildings still stands. It's actually the school district offices for the Marysville Unified School District today. But the campus moved to its current location in 1961, serving roughly 3,500 full-time equivalent students. Enrollments are stable currently. It's an HSI designated college. Both of our colleges are. And you can see as the older college in the district, it has a more comprehensive academic portfolio, full transfer GE, as well as arts, performing arts, theater arts, studio arts, and then a very comprehensive CTE programming in public safety and allied health, and one of the few vet tech programs in the state. Students primarily transfer to Sac State, Chico State, and UC Davis. Yuba College also operates a campus across the river in Sutter County. You may recall, those of you that were on the Board of Governors, when we first opened this campus in its first year of operation, we hit the 1,000 FTES enrollment level for funding as a center, and that campus has continued to grow. The river actually does serve as a geographic divide between Sutter and Yuba counties, and so students are primarily choosing to enroll now on their side of the river. It's a single facility center at this point, operating primarily transfer, some modest lab classes, a growing business program, and a growing dual enrollment relationship with local high schools. Yuba College also operates at Beale Air Force Base. This actually, though, is a declining role for community colleges. We've operated on Beale Air Force Base since the 1970s, until just a few years ago, pretty comprehensive programs, full associate's degrees. But due to some changes in Air Force policy, active duty service members and family members no longer receive tuition assistance for courses that they enroll in unless they are enrolled in the Community College of the Air Force. And so the enrollments at Beale Air Force Base have really been plummeting in just the last few years, and we're not entirely sure what we'll make of the traditional transfer programming there. There's still opportunity for public safety and contract education. You've toured Woodland Community College on the south end of our district. As you know, been operating in the community of Woodland since the mid-1970s, moved to this location in the 1980s, achieved accreditation as a college in 2008. Its enrollments are just under 2,000 full-time equivalent students and growing, and likewise the academic programming is growing. So adding career and technical education programs to very comprehensive transfer GE offerings. Students primarily transfer to Sac State and UC Davis from this campus. And the Woodland Community College also operates the center in Lake County. We've been serving students in southeastern Lake County since the mid-1970s. It is actually grandfathered as a small center under the old funding formula. Enrollments were roughly flat, very modest growth coming out of the recession. And right now we actually have the funding for that campus stabilized. And you're familiar with stabilization for a district. I would like to share with you why we have the funding for the Lake campus stabilized as a campus. So this is last year's Valley Fire. This fire swept through Lake County about 3 weeks after the academic semester began. We actually had just taken census for the fall semester. This fire destroyed about 1,300 buildings. Most of those were homes or businesses. Many of our students, some of our faculty and staff, and one trustee lost their homes to this fire. Then Chancellor Harris and I immediately started talking about what we could do to at least hold this campus stable financially while the enrollments recovered. Then right before the semester began this fall, the Clayton Fire, about a half a mile away in Lower Lake, threatened the campus. So this campus has been through quite a bit, but resilient faculty and staff and resilient spirit and serving students, all classes, all programs are open and operating. And the Lake County campus is aligned with Woodland Community College just for the last 2 years. And this is, we've learned a lot about how to transfer a facility and an operation of that capacity from one college to another. And then lastly, Woodland Community College also operates an outreach center in Colusa County. This has been a challenge for us. We've been very stressed to serve Colusa County over the years. Since the 1970s until the early 2000s, we were providing modest courses in a classroom affiliated with a high school in Colusa. Discontinued during a recession in 2003, and then in response to very strong public opinion and very strong leadership in Colusa County, and in partnership with the county supervisors, established this outreach facility. It opened in 2011. It's a 3-classroom facility, very modest facility, but operates and supports the student needs in that, and has great potential for additional growth, primarily in the support of the ag and hospitality industries in Colusa County. And then lastly, our district headquarters, currently attached to Yuba College as part of our transition as a multi-college district, will move to downtown Yuba City, across a river, across county boundaries. That's also been an interesting exercise to navigate in our rural culture. So that's the Yuba Community College District, and as some of you know, I will take every opportunity to get on a soapbox and talk about the rural communities and rural colleges, so if you'll bear with me, and I know that you know most of this, but the rural communities that we serve are not nearly as affluent as the communities that many other community college districts serve. Our economies struggle, very strong agriculture-based economies, but most of the rest of the economies in the rural communities are slow growth, especially coming out of the recession. Very, very limited post-secondary education opportunities. And as a consequence, there's not as strong a college-going culture in rural communities. So ironically, where high school graduation rates as a percentage of enrollees are typically higher in rural communities, higher percentages of students in rural high schools will graduate than their urban and even suburban counterparts, the college-going rate is far lower. There's just not the college-going culture in rural communities. Populations in general are declining in rural America and absolutely in rural California. High school graduation rates are declining, although they are expected to turn around in another half dozen years or so. But there's absolutely a growing demand for economic and workforce development. Interestingly, across the rest of the country, the majority of community colleges are rural serving, not so in California. So community colleges across the rest of the country, the rural colleges enroll about a third of the students overall, but the majority of the colleges are rural serving. Rural colleges absolutely serve a higher percentage, in many cases, of first-generation college students, higher percentages of minority students. But in California, far fewer of the colleges are rural or rural serving. Only 20 actually are in a rural serving capacity, and only 10 of us actually are in what would count as rural settings. So we too are challenged in rural colleges. The tax base is just not nearly what it might be in other settings to support facilities or the possibility of even support for operations. We're challenged when it comes to career and technical education in finding large industry partners and employment partners, mostly small businesses that we serve. There's generally a lower philanthropic support base. We are very challenged in terms of efficiency, where larger colleges can achieve an economy of scale in staffing. We're simply not able to accomplish that. One payroll technician could support 100 employees or 10,000 employees. And so we really, we've got disproportionate, I would characterize them as disproportionate administrative costs. A higher percentage of our general operating budget goes to actually operating the colleges rather than directly serving students. We're very fragile around the state economy, and one rural college in California, to my knowledge, is the only public community college to have ever declared bankruptcy, and that was back in the 1980s. It has since recovered. That is the institution that I served at before this district. Not in my time, I guess I could say. And so as a consequence, particularly in our rural settings, we're very challenged to find and recruit and retain highly qualified faculty and administrators. In terms of adjunct faculty, there typically aren't the kinds of retirees or industry bases that would support professionally qualified individuals to teach for us. We're very challenged to maintain what are in many cases very dated facilities. Startup costs are a challenge for us to bring new programs on. And we're very challenged with respect to technology, not necessarily because of our technology, but because of the regional infrastructures. So our students, by and large, do not have access to ubiquitous technology, ubiquitous internet from their homes. So the whole multiple hat thing has always just seemed a little benign to me. The life in the rural college often seems very perilous, and our work very complex and challenging and very high stakes. That said, those of us that serve in rural colleges, and I have for virtually my entire career, absolutely love the opportunities that they provide. We are, I believe, able to be in many ways more student-focused and more learning-focused because of small classroom sizes and our ability to build enduring relationships with our students. As a consequence, I think we often have higher percentages of alumni in our local communities, and so we're really able to forge strong relationship with those communities. I may not have a full perspective on this, having never served in a large urban setting, but my sense is that we're pretty nimble and that we can respond. We are very resilient, and I think the fires in Lake County are evidence of that. And we collaborate very well in the rural setting. It's, I think, just part of the rural culture. So as you know, I believe you know, in the Far North Regional Consortium for the Doing What Matters, now the Strong Workforce Initiative, as an example, the rural colleges and the large metropolitan college district that's part of the Far North. Member Haynes won't let me get away with ignoring Los Rios Community College District. We've actually undertaken the pilot work to pilot, I'm being redundant, we've undertaken the pilot work to streamline the curriculum review and approval process for the Strong Workforce Program. And I think we're well suited to it as colleges that have a very collaborative spirit. And so with that, I again welcome you and would stand for any questions or comments, or I'll let you get on with your business.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to open it up to any members of the board that have questions. Member Avalos.
Thank you for the presentation. So I grew up in the rural community of Gridley, California, which is probably an hour away, 60 miles from here.
And just outside our district boundaries.
Right. So I know Yuba College and I know Butte College and I know that area specifically. So one of the questions I have specifically around rural communities, your presentation, what can we do as a Board of Governors to help you in the rural communities?
Thank you for asking that question. I do believe that there are a number of policies that have been established over the years in our system that don't take into account the unique challenges and the unique opportunities that we have in the rural setting. And so I think that fine-tuning some of these policies in and of themselves would go a long way to supporting us. And I can think of a number of policies and would love to have more conversation about those with Chancellor Skinner and staff, and have over the years, the last few years. But I think the work that you do as the Board of Governors around policies, if it can be better informed by the diversity of our colleges, I think that would go a long way to supporting us.
Any other, Member Haynes.
My thing doesn't, oh, yes, it does. The light doesn't look like it's on. So thank you for your presentation, and as you know, I'm quite interested in the Far North Consortium, and one of the things that that you highlighted and makes a lot of sense relative to those students that graduate from high school but that don't go on to college, where I see there being huge opportunities is to translate going on relative to those new high-paying jobs, and really having the consortium really think about how it can really collaborate on what kind of work do we really want our students and the folks, the residents, to really be engaged in. And so I'm really very supportive, and I look forward to the work that all of the consortiums do, but in particular, the Far North has all of these rural campuses as well as rural counties, and to be really honest and fair, there hasn't been enough. While there's been a lot of talk, there hasn't been a lot of outcome-driven work. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that happen, where at the end of the day, the students that come out of these programs, really there's a job waiting where they can make a good living, and they can, and that their family members, their children will see that there's an opportunity, and that Sacramento or LA or someplace else isn't their answer, but they can really stay close to home if they want to.
Anything else? Member Sumner.
I just want to say, as we were walking around the campus today, the peace, the calm, the energy, the readings on the walls, the pictures, the students, and then when you listen to some of the staff members that were students here, and they bring their passion back and they give back, and then with the rural communities, that's really what it's about, is giving back. And we started to go over to the agricultural area, and when we, the plants and just, the environment, and then to now they're going to get cadaver. Like, they're really excited about a cadaver. Of course, I could have stayed in there all day. I'm like, okay, I'm ready, bring it on. But when I went to community college, we had cadavers. Actually, we had cats too. We took them home and put them in our refrigerators, but there's no OSHA violation there. But it just, that the students walking around and seeing the students and the engagement and the passion of the counselors, the teachers, my hat's off to you. And even the little vet center that I saw, they want to make them bigger, so we need to support them more. But this is a very impressive campus, and I loved your share because it really opened my eyes to things that sometimes we forget to think about. So thank you.
Chancellor Skinner.
Yeah, Chancellor Houston, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for hosting us here. I just want to take a minute to recognize you for the leadership you've provided to our system over the years. You've been incredibly engaged and effective as a leader, no-nonsense innovator that's helped us on a statewide level advance economic workforce development policy, student success initiatives, work around rural collaboratives to cut down administrative costs, and the list goes on. You've been a great partner to us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Chancellor Houston. We look forward to having a more social conversation this evening, but we've had it really does make a difference to this board and my service on the board to go out to beyond the Chancellor's office and visit local campuses and to see your students and meet your faculty and see the physical environment in which they operate. And so it's something that as I look toward the end of my leadership as president of the board, I do want to continue to find more ways that the board can interact with the local districts, and so look forward to doing that, and thanking you and your team for the work you do and the welcome you've provided us.
Thank you.
Now we move on to our action items on our agenda. We start with the consent calendar, item 1.1, and we have the minutes of the meeting on July 18th. And first, are there any corrections or comments on the minutes as presented? Seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar, consent items.
Approval.
Is there a second? Okay, a motion by Member Estolano, Vice President Estolano, second by Member Hawkins. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, and no abstentions, so the minutes are carried. Then we move on to item 2.1, approval of contracts and grants. And so I will turn that over to the Chancellor, who will introduce this topic, and then will you let me know if there's any members of the public that wish to address the board on it.
President Baum, members of the board, the next item is the approval of contracts and grants. To present this item is Vice Chancellor Paul Feast.
Good afternoon, President Baum, board members, and Chancellor Skinner. This meeting's grants and contracts portion includes 9 items. The largest distribution is item 7, which contains $190 million to local colleges for the Strong Workforce Program to expand the availability and quality of CTE opportunities. Item 6 is for up to $20 million for statewide coordination, research, evaluation related to the Strong Workforce Program activities, as well as scaling up successful practices. There were a couple of errors in the agenda item that was mailed to you. At the dais before you, you should have corrected copies. The errors were in item 3, an addition error, and in item 7, which transposed local and regional shares percentages for the Strong Workforce Program allocations. All the dollar amounts for the local colleges and districts are correct. The recommendation is that you approve the amended agenda item before you.
Actually, I forgot to ask one question on item 4. I should have pointed this out earlier. Is that, it says the amount of the agreement up to is that 1.7 million or one?
It says $1,700. We're assuming there's a typo there. I got the same thing.
Student Services, Vice Chancellor Walker.
It's
Item
item
number
number
4.
4.
Page 12.
It's must be expressed in thousands.
Yeah. Seems like we're missing a few zeros.
Yeah, it wouldn't be coming to you if it was that amount, so.
Okay, pending the clarification on that number, first off, I'd like to, since there are no members of the public that wish to address the board on this, entertain a motion, and then we'll see if there's any board member comments. Is there a motion to approve the contracts and grants as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? There's a motion by Member Hawkins and a second by Member Belinsky. We'll see if there's any questions.
And I would just clarify, so that number 4 has been pulled off until, if we can get clarification, we'll bring it back to you, but at this point, we're still waiting for a number there.
Member Belinsky?
My question? Okay. It's a very pragmatic question. Once we pass these, how soon does the money go out to the colleges? And the reason I'm asking is because there's a lot of talk out there about item number 7.
Chancellor?
Just curious.
Yeah, so in terms of how long it takes for the money to get out, it will depend based on the program, and so we could answer that. I think you're right, that number 7, the Strong Workforce Program, is a lot of money and there's a lot of focus on it. So I'm going to look to Mario and Vaughn, Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan, and Vice Chancellor Rodriguez to see if they know the time frame on those allocations.
Mr. President, while they're coming up, could I also ask, since you're going to address number 7, can you explain how 6 and 7 work together? Thank you. And while you're at it, who the other 2 bidders were for 6?
So we have to go through a process of not only working out the allocations in-house, and so that's what once we figure out with new programs such as a Strong Workforce Program, first we run in-house calculations, bounce those off individuals in the field to make sure that they're in agreement with what the field is expecting. Then we work through a state-level process with the State Controller's Office. The State Controller's Office, they have payment periods towards the end of the month generally. And so on this one, based on the board's action today, we're going to try to get it out by the end of the month, of this month, for the amount that goes to the colleges. The amount that goes to the regions, that won't be put out until probably October, November. But like I said, I don't want to say that we're going to definitely get it out by the end of this month, because it's not all within our purview. We have to work with the Controller's Office. If they have a really busy month and they can't get to it till October, we can't do that. But it's ready to go. When we passed out, the allocation sheet's already gone out to the colleges, so we'll do our best to get it out this month.
So that is the cash flow, which I know many districts are concerned about. At the end of today, and it'll go live tomorrow, we go live with a local share template. And so all colleges that plan to use the local shares have to input the amount of dollars, verification that there's labor market need, that they're going to, their projections of more and better or better CTE, and the district certifies them to use the money. So there's a procedural part, but that goes live tomorrow.
That's helpful to know.
Oh, may I answer your second?
Yeah, please, how they go together.
Yes, so the item 6 is intended to work with item 7. So there's a set of strong workforce recommendations that require us to have central coordination. So for example, outreach to employers, outreach to students. So outreach to employers for the purpose of generating more internships and job placement, as well as outreach to students, such as scaling the mobile app that Member Avalos has seen, and that's a project in partnership with the foundation. So these are things where we want to centrally provide tools that colleges and regions will use so that they don't have to start from scratch. So there's a combination of us providing central tools as well as local regional efforts.
And then do you recall who the other 2 bidders were for number 6? I think you said there were 3 bidders.
Yes, off the top of my head, I believe they were colleges at Canyons and Rancho Santiago District.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments about that? Member Avalos?
So when I look at the, so number 7, I see many community colleges here represented. I'm assuming they're not all of the community colleges represented, correct?
All 113 have a local share.
They all have a local share, so they're all here. So if I were to count these, I haven't counted them, but there'd be 113 of them? Really?
districts.
Yeah, so there's 72 community
72
college districts. We pass it to the district. Those are the fiscal aid college portion.
So every district is represented on these sheets here, right? Okay. Okay. And in terms of proportion, just give me a high level, how do we come up with the proportional differences between Yosemite and, for example, Riverside College?
So this new program had a very specific allocation required by statute. In the 16-17 fiscal year, it's 1/3 based on your district's proportion of CTE FTS, 1/3 based on the number of unemployed adults, and then 1/3 based on the number of job openings in your region. So so we tried to proxy that in your district by looking at the number of adults in your district. So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Next year, the formula will be changed a little bit to add a outcomes component based on WIOA metrics, which all that's yet to be discussed, but and it's in progress right now. But
Thank you.
And just for the public record, how do we manage oversight of these funds once they're dispersed?
So first, all the districts have to certify that the requirements of the statute has been met before the local shares are used. And all of the uses must be submitted by January 31st. And then at that point, we begin to generate reports for the public to see how our colleges are making investments. The same will happen with the regional share. And as a matter of fact, all of our colleges' investments will run reports, and they will be incorporated by the local workforce system into their submissions to the feds. So there's a lot of integration between systems in this process.
Vice President Estolano?
Yeah, and then presumably we'll get an annual report. You'll come back to the board and say how we did before we do the next round.
Yes.
Correct? Can I have a follow-up question? So this is on number 8, just to switch gears. Also, it's Workforce and Economic Development Division. So this is a $4 million agreement. Do you have a sense of how many students are going to be served by this?
Yes, so this is the last of the award that was made 4 years ago. So there have been 10,000 students served with high-risk students, 48% Hispanic, 60% African American, and the outcome has been that 51% receive certifications, with 84% successful in job placement. So this has been a very good program.
So it's the same, it's this the last tranche of that money, so
Yes.
you're expecting the same kind of outcomes with this investment?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Member Epstein?
Going back to number 7.
Yeah, just
talk.
Just speak
It's like
into it.
magic.
On the 6 and 7. So number 6 is sort of the administrative controller of this money, and I'm curious, what does the Chancellor's office do that the Chabot College, who has this grant, isn't doing, or how presumably they're doing some of the oversight that this is spent well, or are they just dispersing the money and not really looking at the outcomes at all?
We will be commissioning evaluation through them, but they're the fiscal agent that will be doing the subcontracting for the evaluators. We'll also be doing a lot of incremental data system work to establish data clearinghouse so that multiple agencies can see the outcomes of students or participants when they touch different systems. So we'll be looking to the fiscal agent to really be the banker and make sure that the monies are spent in accordance to the contracts.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how do you assure there's not duplication of effort if there's this kind of layer of a grant that goes to Chabot to do all this work, and then you're overseeing, all the grants and Chabot? I mean, how does that work in reality?
Could I take a stab at this first, and then if you want to weigh in? I think you put your finger on something that's very important in terms of the way we operate. It's a challenge for us when the state gives us monies such as this, where we're required to contract out to another entity to provide leadership. We create this situation where there are two levels of leadership going on simultaneously. And the reality is it creates extra work. I think it creates extra risks for us and for the state by having the potential for there to be gaps in the communication. The way we try to remedy that is we try to over-communicate. We try to really stay in tight connection with the grantee. We make sure the contracts are tight in terms of defining roles and responsibilities. And again, there's a lot of communication back and forth. But I'll just be clear, I think it's a second best strategy. I think a lot of this work, if it could be funded directly through the Chancellor's office, is a preferable route because it allows us to build the capacity in our office to provide the leadership and to make sure that the policies that are coming before you and that are leading the system are integrated, not just within the workforce program, but between the workforce program and the student success work and the associate degrees for transfer. It's, and so that's something I think we're going to be working on under the new chancellor.
Thank you for raising that, and thank you, Chancellor Skinner, for raising that. Okay, we're going to go to a vote. There's a motion on the table for approval of contracts and grants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Are there any other comments? Thank you to the Chancellor staff, and congratulations to all the districts. We will be monitoring the distribution of those funds and look forward to hearing the impacts that they have made. We now move on to item 2.2. Item 2.2 is a second reading and adoption of regulations related to the articulation of high school courses. The Chancellor and the staff will now provide information on the item. Chancellor?
All right. Thank you, President Baum. Members of the board, this item is a second reading and proposed adoption of changes to Title V regulations relative to articulation of high school courses. This item was held over from your July board meeting. There was an initial conversation around it, but then we decided to hold it over so that staff could provide additional clarification to the board before adoption. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chancellor for Educational Services, Pam Walker, for presentation.
President Baum, Vice President Estolano, board members, I am joined by Jackie Escajeda, who is Dean in the Academic Affairs Division and oversees significantly the curriculum process. Just for perspective, neither of us were a part of this dialogue back in 2009, but we know more about it today than we ever thought we would need to know about it. The item is important around articulation of high school courses. We're looking for a revision to Title V to ensure that students who have completed comparable coursework in their high school are able to enroll in more advanced college coursework and streamline and accelerate their completion of study. Jackie and I have talked significantly about a program called CAD. It's a computer-based program. And if you took a course in high school, a CAD course, you might not be able, if you don't have an articulated agreement, you would go to the local college and retake that same course again. So we're trying to reach a place around student success where high schools and their local colleges would have articulated agreements, particularly in the workforce agenda and CTE, where they don't have to take a second course again. So they have a pathway a little more fluid. And Vice President Estolano, you asked a couple of really important questions that we have dug through in the past few weeks on does the language satisfy your questions around governing boards may accept articulated high school courses without credit. Right. And first, it's kind of a twofold. Articulated high school courses may be accepted without credit to partially satisfy requirements for certificate programs or a requirement in a degree program and credit earned by examination. So some of our students who come from high schools may not have the resources to validate taking an exam because those might cost additional money. So we're trying to do all this work to try to help students have a more seamless pathway. And what happens on some of our campuses is they just haven't been able to develop the infrastructure to make this happen. We're going to try to do this work to help the infrastructure across the system so all colleges and all students would have the same opportunity.
This revision would guarantee that all students receive the same treatment statewide, because it's different from college to college.
So I read this again and again and again. So you can get credit in the sense that you wouldn't take the class again, but it doesn't count towards your 12 units, correct?
Right.
So that's right, for the purposes of advancing towards an AA, or even for transfer. It just means you don't have to repeat the class.
Don't have to repeat the class,
Okay.
and it could be a part of a prereq
Got it.
anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the clarification, because I
Yeah.
could not get my head around, why do you not get credit if you're getting credit? But it's really says you can continue to advance, but it doesn't count towards your AA or your transfer. It just means you don't have to take the same entry-level class again.
I've decided that some of the verbiage in Title V just makes it more difficult for us to understand what's best. Jackie and I were still talking about this late last night, going, remind me where we're going to get asked one more question. And we think that we have it very clear today.
Okay, that's why they have lawyers. This is all about us creating more work for ourselves, so thank you.
But before we take a lot of board comments, I wanted, is that the conclusion of the presentation? Are there members of the public that wish to address the board on this topic? Okay, we will move on to comments or questions from the board. Member Belinsky.
I want to go back to where, am I on?
Yes, you're on.
I want to go back to that question because I'm not sure I totally understand. What does it mean without credit, and then you're transcripting it? I mean, is it that the high school course is transcripted somehow? And
Sometimes it's on the high school transcript. If it's not, like if it's a prereq, so that it demonstrates the student took it at the high school level, so that covers a prereq for CAD, for example. But sometimes if it is a college credit, then it'll be on the college transcripts.
for credit.
For
But
credit.
this not credit thing
Yes.
is the high school transcript.
Yeah,
That's not clear to me.
it's not clearly written. It's just
That's not clear to me, just to say. I have other questions, if that's
Go
okay.
ahead, please.
One is in the very first underline in A, it says the governing board of a community college district may adopt policies. Is that saying that there would be some districts that wouldn't adopt such policies?
I suppose there is always that impression that some districts wouldn't adopt policies around student success. But we're going to hope very much as we put this information out that we give the districts all the appropriate background so that they might wish to adopt that. That's not saying that some districts would not have articulated agreements with some of their high school districts, and yet we're working very significantly with college and high school districts on dual enrollment, which is one of the agenda items we're ahead of. So we hope that this will all bear into the opportunity for
But it's
each of
giving
those.
them the flexibility.
Absolutely.
It's not saying you shall do this. One of my other questions is about stylistics on 1D, or 2D rather, where it says, according to policies of the college. Is there any reason it doesn't say college/district? Because in some instances, it wouldn't be by the college, it would be by the district.
You're right. We could add district/college/district.
And then I'm finding it interesting in number 1 at the bottom, and I can't tell whether that's like D1 or.
It's D1. Yeah, the headers are the small letters.
But policies and procedures, which I find interesting, approved by the curriculum committee. Because, I mean, if we follow accreditation, policies are actually board-level approach, and procedures, are you saying that the curriculum committee would approve them and they would go elsewhere within the district, in the college? They wouldn't just stop at the curriculum committee?
So anything that is developed by a college curriculum committee always needs to go through to the Board of Trustees of the particular district. There isn't anything that a college curriculum committee would approve without appropriate support of their board.
Yeah, I have to be honest, by the way this is written, that's not clear that they also then refer this.
So one of the most interesting pieces of this particular agenda is that we tried to create a place that both our former colleagues and the Academic Senate continued to try to find resolution, and so many things have changed since 2009. So we have the dual enrollment ability, we have student success, and so in creating this, we may have even created more work for ourselves in trying to have a seamless pathway for high school students to have more success. There may be even more work that legal counsel and I can do on this particular regulation.
Yeah, sometimes, and just to say it, people will go to Title V, and they'll point something out in Title V, and they'll say, well, Title V gives us the permission to do this. And then you read it, and you say, oh, I guess it does, because it doesn't say, I'll leave it there. And the only other edit that I'd like to make is at the top of the next page, where it says outline of record. It should say course outline of record.
Member Haynes?
So I realize that this is as clear as mud, but I do want to commend everyone. The educational codes in California are some of the most lengthy, confusing, and I remember when I worked in the legislature, someone said, there's only 5 people in California that really understand the ed codes, and I think that is actually true, and 2 of them are
just
dead.
died.
Yeah,
Right.
two are dead, so we have 3 someplace. But what I do want to say is for those who work within the boundaries of the ed code and recognize that what our students need and what our colleges need are some clarifications, especially as we step forward into the CTE pathways, and how do we align what's happening on our high school campuses to what they need when they come onto a college campus, whether it's a community college or if it's a 4-year campus. And so this is language that moves in the right direction. That a student who is at high school that's taking a CAD course, it should be aligned in a way that high school information that they're learning, they don't have to repeat anywhere. And that's the alignment that we're looking for, that they don't have, and it becomes a prerequisite when they go on and not something that they have to start all over again. And so this moves that in the absolute right direction. And so I commend everyone, including faculty, who are recognizing the need to be, they've always recognized the need to be collaborative, but to move the agenda forward so that we're pushing away obstacles. So, thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Before, okay, so we have a motion by Vice President Estolano and a second by Member Haynes. But before we do that, I want to make sure we've incorporated if there are any changes to the language that were suggested during this conversation. And so I wanted to clarify that. Member Belinsky, there is one word, there's one on item B, you suggested course outline of record to be added. Is that?
Up at the top of page 28.
Right, and I wanted to check with the Chancellor to see if that is fine, and does that need further review?
We're going to hear from Peter Kang.
So, President Baum, Vice President Estolano, members of the board, Chancellor Skinner, if we are going to make any changes to the regulations, then we would have to renotice and go through the process again. So, just wanted to point that out.
Okay, that is good to know. Member Belinsky.
The reality is if you look through this, the term course outline of record is used in other instances right here. I'm curious why it didn't get used then at the top, because that's what you're referring to. Set forth in the course outline of record, the actual area course content. I mean, it says course.
And there was another instance where it was suggested that we add the word college and district. Where was that?
Yes, because,
D on page 27, right?
yes.
Policies for the college/district.
So the question is, if we are to, but council suggests that any language changes would require a re-notification of that. So I wanted to see if we should proceed with the adoption of this regulation as agendized, and then it could be brought back
Mr.
if
President.
we needed to, Madam.
I mean, it's waited 7 years. What's
right.
another 2 months?
I just want to make another comment. I mean, the issue is there that in many instances, and I can think of my own district, you do not pass a policy at the college. The policy is passed at the district level, and it's typically passed by the board. Because there's even a bit of confusion, as I said in the other one. A curriculum committee per se would not be passing policies. They might recommend a policy to the board, but the curriculum committee would be passing a procedure.
Right. So I understand, and I understand the need for precision, especially in these codes. At the same time, is there a material difference in the code if we adopt it as is, or make the language adjustments and save it for a future meeting? Because we do have a motion on the table, and before we withdraw the motion for further consideration.
I would accept, I mean, my assumption in my motion was that those 2 changes would be made, but actually I think it should, instead of college, it should say district. It actually is a material difference. So I would make that change as part of my motion, and course credit outline of record. I'm assuming, Member Berlinski, you've come through this in a way I can't. I mean, for me, it just wasn't written well, as clearly as it could have been written, but are there other procedural issues you found in here that we need to amend?
The only other one that I'm just noting is this explanation about curriculum committee.
So may I suggest we get that change made immediately so it can come back for a second reading by November?
Right.
You know, I'm happy to keep this particular item with me as long as I stay at the Chancellor's office. And what it teaches one is to rewrite it to current conversation. This was an item that was written in 2009.
Right.
And we tried to move this agenda so that, being asked to move this based on dual enrollment, we'll bring it, we'll go back with legal counsel.
So-
We'll rewrite it and
Can you just bring it back tomorrow? Seriously?
You can't leave. 72 hours, right?
Counsel?
Vice President Solano, so under our regulations policies, it would need to be rewritten and with the 45-day notice. And so at the first hearing, we would also need, or the November BOG meeting, it would be a public hearing. And so this, realistically, if we were to be as timely as possible, wouldn't be done until the meeting after the November.
Because it has to come back as another first reading.
Correct. It would have to come back as a first reading in November.
The interesting thing about that procedure is, if you couldn't amend things at the first reading, what would be the point of 2 readings? But I'll just state that that's my suggestion, but let's
It's a fair point.
fix it and bring it back and make it work.
But-
Yeah,
Am I,
do it in the middle of the night.
right, am I hearing that you're withdrawing the motion to approve this?
Yes, I
And I
withdraw the
withdraw
motion
the
to
second.
approve, but
And Member Haynes is withdrawing the second. Member Belinsky, and then. I'll
Just
let
one
you
other
answer.
comment. This is not listed as a first reading. This
it's
is
a
listed as
second
action.
reading.
Well, it was,
Right, because we didn't change anything. You guys withdrew it before, so this should have been agendized as a first reading because we didn't actually take
Right.
action on it last meeting.
It was actually agendized as a second reading last time, and so we pushed the second reading to
Got
this
it.
meeting. But your point before was a great one. This change has been a long time coming. Another meeting's not going to hold it up. And I want to talk with council about these changes are not substantive. They're clarifying in nature, And I think that, I agree that, I mean, it's not ripe for action today, but I'm optimistic we'll be able to bring this back to you at your next meeting and have a much more streamlined, efficient conversation and have it done. In the meantime, Member Belinsky, others, if you see other changes you think are necessary, give us an advance notice, and we will go ahead and incorporate that so that we can get this one to the finish line.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, members of the board, for helping clarify that. We will move on to item 2.3, which is a second reading and adoption of regulations related to academic record symbols and grade point average, the satisfactory progress grade. The Chancellor and staff will now provide information on the item.
President Baum and board members, this item is a second reading and proposed adoption of Title V changes to establish a new evaluatory grade of satisfactory progress, or SP, for non-credit courses. To present the item is Vice Chancellor for Educational Services, Pam Walker.
Chancellor Baum, President Baum, Vice President Estolano, board members, Jackie Escajeda is here with me as well. The current grades available for non-credit courses are limited to pass and no pass. However, because students can take multiple times to complete a single non-credit course, they may not earn either a pass or no pass. And so we are trying to do two things with this. There's no mechanism to collect data on students who are making progress in their non-credit courses, nor for students to see that they're making progress in their non-credit courses. And so this change provides the SP grade as an option for colleges with non-credit programs and non-credit courses to use this. It's not a mandatory way to do it. It's another opportunity for us to look at student success. So if you're in a non-credit program and you have received the significance of that course, you may have an SP on your grade, or not the significance of that course, so that you can see where your progress is. And we feel like it, working with our Academic Senate colleagues and the Curriculum Committee, we felt like this was a way to continually help students have a way to track their progress.
Thank you. Are there any comment cards from the public on this? Questions or comments from the members of the board?
We need this.
Member Belinsky says we need this. So I will ask for a motion on the recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, so a motion by Member Hawkins, second by Member Sumner, I believe I heard. Are there any other questions on this item? We have a motion and a second. We'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 2.5, the system budget request, because we're anticipating a presentation on item 2.4 by a guest at 2:30. So, oh, good. So, Chancellor, I'd like to invite you to open the conversation on this item.
President Baum and board members, this action item is which is item 2.5 on page 41 of your agenda. It proposes the adoption of the 2017-18 system budget request. This spending plan came to you at your July board meeting, and you had an opportunity to review it. And now it's coming back to you for final approval. To present the item, we have Vice Chancellor for College Finance, Mario Rodriguez.
President Baum, Vice President Estolano, members of the board, Interim Chancellor Skinner. Where we're at in the process is the way that this system comes up with this official budget request that goes to the ultimately to the Department of Finance and to the legislature and to the governor's office is we hold a budget work group. That work group is made up of all of the organizations on Consultation Council and many of their advocates in Sacramento. We run that request by that group twice. We also bring it to Consultation Council twice, and we run the request by them. We ran this by you at this last board meeting, and this is the final step in the process. So while things are pretty well set, this is ultimately this board's budget request. And so while we've taken input from everybody else, this is ultimately yours, and this is what goes over as our request. So today's the last day we can make any changes to it. The timeline for finance to incorporate these requests into the governor's budget is fairly tight, and so we'll send this over within the week or so of this meeting. So I'll go through each item individually, and then towards the end, feel free, we can talk about any one of these more in depth, and I'll answer any questions at the time as well. So for growth this year, we requested 2% growth funding. Now we know that growth throughout the state has been very uneven. We have seen substantial growth in the Los Angeles and San Diego areas, as well as the southern Central Valley areas, such as Kern County and Fresno County. Growth in other parts of the state, such as Bay Area, Sacramento area, far north, Central Coast, has been relatively non-existent, especially in the more recent years since we've seen such a substantial increase in funding. COLA is projected to be 1% next year. We put in 1% as a placeholder. Ultimately, COLA for our system is based on a federal price deflator number that comes out in about the March, April, May timeframe. And so whatever the ultimate COLA is what we want. If it's higher than 1%, that's great. If not, we'll take whatever the statutory number is. General operating expenses, our districts have come under a substantial increase in new obligations needed to cover pension cost increases, retiree health care benefit increases in other areas we'll talk about today, such as campus security, campus safety. So we're asking for $200 million to help cover those costs. Full-time faculty hiring, 2 years ago, we received $62 million to increase the amount of full-time faculty that teach our credit-bearing courses. In this year's budget, we did not receive any. We're requesting another $100 million, which would add roughly 1,000 more full-time faculty to our systems count. Part-time faculty support. In this year's budget, we were able to restore the part-time faculty office hours categorical. Historically, there's always been 3 categoricals for part-time faculty. We were able to restore one, the office hours. The other 2, the health compensation and the parity pay categoricals, are roughly $25 million to fully restore those as well. So the request here has all 3 being restored, 1 restored this year and 2 restored in the budget year. Veterans Resource Center, this is something that's new. Although the request has been ongoing, we're trying to put a little more emphasis on it. It would be $25 million to establish a grant program to help establish new and better support the current Veterans Resource Centers that are out there. While the specifics of the program are not contained in the proposal itself, I think it's something that will be worked out over the next few months in the budget process if we end up getting this in there. It would likely have consideration for minimum standards of what constitutes a high-functioning Veterans Resource Center. So that's space, counseling staff, hours that it's opened. And that would be a dialogue that we would be able to engage in with system stakeholders, as well as legislative staff and Governor's Office and Department of Finance. The next three categories of technology, campus safety, and mental health are really more of a reflection of where our system has been increasing costs significantly and how we're in need of funding specifically for these purposes if we're able to address those challenges effectively. Technology, the classroom of today is not the classroom of 20 years ago, and that's been essentially paid for on the backs of the colleges without any additional discretionary money allowable specific to technology. Campus safety, whether that's dealing with the human element of it, the policing forces, whether you're contracting out to your local sheriff agency or local police officers, or you're paying for your own in-house staff to carry out your safety protocols. There's also a huge element of this that deals with improving your infrastructure. So that's your classrooms, making sure you have the right locks on your doors. And so this money would go to addressing those new costs that are so important to our system, to making sure our students and our employees are safe. Mental health, there would be $25 million to increase and better support how our campuses serve our students and coordinate with local social service agencies. The next two are ways in which our system can leverage its size. And so for the online education initiative, Our online education initiative in the first year was received about $17 million, 10 of which was ongoing, about 7 of it was one time. With the one-time dollars, we were able to purchase Canvas, which is a course management system for the colleges that were participating in that. That's proven to be a very effective model, not only to create a more common student experience, but also as a way to leverage the purchasing power of our 113 colleges. So what this 10 million would do would do this for, until the money wasn't there anymore. So it would pay for that annual fee. It would be roughly half of what the normal cost if all of our colleges were just to go out and buy their course management system, which they already are doing. So it would just be a way for us to leverage our economies of scale and create a better student experience. The integrated library system, this would be $2.5 million ongoing to create a centralized library management system to provide information resources in academic libraries consistent across the system, so students at one part of the state had the same access to high quality management or library service materials as they did in another part of the state. Open educational resources, we've had a flurry of initiatives around this lately. This would provide $20 million for colleges to implement their own OER pathways, textbooks. California does a very good job of reducing and waiving fees for students, but textbooks could be just as costly, if not more costly, than in some of these courses, especially in the STEM arenas. And so, having a college-led effort to create more of these OER pathways with zero and low-cost textbooks would be something that would greatly benefit the students of our state. EEO, in this year's budget, received an additional $2 million ongoing. It's a very small program. It's only about $2.7 million annually, but it's one that's very important, especially not only given the recent attention of the legislature, but the longstanding attention that this board's had on diversifying our faculty and classified staff. So this money would go out to help support local hiring practice efforts and improvements. During the last fiscal year, we went through a process at the Chancellor's office led by our previous Chancellor, Thuy Nguyen, our previous Council, Thuy Nguyen, to change the funding model for how we allocate these funds. It went from pretty much everyone receiving the dollars to only districts that agreed to adopt best practices in hiring that leans towards more diverse candidate pools. So we had 60 colleges that received these dollars, and we've seen the remaining 12 show a lot of interest in making sure that next year's allocation that they'll be eligible for it. So hopefully we'll have all colleges having adopted those new guidelines, and so this 10 million would go out just on that new method of allocation. Public outreach, this year we received about $2.5 million to the I Can't Afford College campaign. Since the recession, we have not been able to have non-English speaking ads for the I Can't Afford College campaign. The current year's $2.5 million is meant to reestablish that program, and so the non-English language will be geared towards whatever it'll be contextualized to what the community needs. So down south it might be Spanish, up north in the Bay Area you might get into Tagalog and other languages as well. But we're going to be reaching other students, not only English-speaking households. This $10 million would be to support our CTE rebranding efforts. When you talk to students across the state, and I remember hearing about it when I was going on these CTE tours about a faculty member who said, I can't get students in my class that when they graduate they'll make $75,000 starting. And so one of the problems that we've had is getting that CTE message to be more positive for not only students but also for their parents. And so this 10 million would go towards that effort.
Since we have the whole proposal in the book, could you just jump over to a couple of the one-time funding request highlights, and then we'll open it up? Because we have about a dozen members of the public that like to address the board.
Okay, so the one-time funding requests, the $15 million we received this year would be extended into next year for the Promise programs. This would go to establish and expand current Promise programs. It would operate exactly the same. That's what the proposal would do as Assemblymember Rodriguez's bill. The $25 million for innovation in education would be used to start innovative programs, or to award innovative programs and CTE pathways for STEM, and pathways for students that are underrepresented groups. And consistent with the last two innovation programs, the language is left broad to allow for maximum flexibility by the awards committee. The deferred maintenance and instructional equipment is something that this board's seen time and time again. It's a good place for colleges to invest one-time dollars in. We're requesting to better support our students through the Cal Grant program, and we're asking for a guaranteed backfill, two requests that this board has seen year after year.
Well, thank you for that overview. We have a dozen members of the public that wish to address the board on this, and then we'll open it up for board discussion before taking action. Ms. Gilmer, if you could also help keep time, because as you see on the comment card, we're limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Vice President Estolano.
So I'm going to call up 3 names, and then as we go through, I'll keep calling up names, and please come forward. Destiny Godu, Desi Hatch, and Jason Gessler.
So, Vice Chancellor, if we're going to let the folks come forward, and we'll bring you back when the board engages in this.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Can you, Destiny Godu?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. My name is Destiny Godu, and I served 5 years in the Marine Corps as an aviation electrician. My specialty was forward-looking infrared missile guidance systems. And what I did is I maintained the security, I troubleshot and repaired and inspected these $2 million systems for the 5 years I was in the Marine Corps, and I went through a year of aviation electrical training in order to do that, to ensure the proper procedures and safety policies were implemented. Excuse me. I actually went from not knowing what a multimeter was to understanding schematics and knowing how to do calibration and diagnostic testings. So needless to say, I am a quick learner, and I will work hard in order to obtain the skills necessary for the job. Once I was honorably discharged, I had a difficulty with enrolling into community colleges. I was given some false information that discouraged me from applying, one of them being that I would be responsible for out-of-state fees because I had changed my residency to South Carolina, where I was stationed at. And it wasn't until I had an unexpected move that I went and it prompted me to apply to another community college. And there they told me the information was correct, that I simply had to fill out a form, and because I was from here, I was okay. So it was really nice to know that someone was educated on that aspect instead of just initially giving me the incorrect information. So from there, I started at Las Positas Community College, where I'm currently enrolled right now. I was still transitioning out of the Marine Corps, so going from being a sergeant in the Marine Corps, it was quite a transition to being around 18 and 19-year-olds. Luckily, there is a Veteran Resource Center at Las Positas that does provide a lot of services. And from there, I got involved in the Student Veteran Organization, which I was nominated as the president. And then I was in the engineering technology, which I did an internship at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and now I am hired on part-time there. So I went from, having difficulties just enrolling enrolling in colleges to having the assistance of the Veterans Resource Center to now working as a mechanical engineering technician.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. We have Desi Hatch.
Hi, everyone. I'm Desi Hatch. So a little bit about myself. I was in the United States Navy, got out as a Hospital Third Class Fleet Marine Force Warfare Specialist. I served 5 years, did a year in training, and then for the rest of the 4 years, I was in 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines Golf Company. 3 years in the Infantry Line Company, and a year in the training regiment where I taught medicine. So after I got out, it was very hard to transition. As we all know, everyone, when they get out of the military, it's very, very difficult for us to adapt to the civilian life. So for about a year, I stayed inside the multiple houses that I lived in. I was homeless for a little bit. Friends took me in, and I stayed inside. Why? Because I was bitter. I was bitter at everything. I hated everything. I was not the person you see today. Through my issues, I had help from other veterans from across the country. Eventually, I moved here, and I found this school through my friends. When I first got to Las Positas College, I didn't talk to anyone. I did not use the VRC. And eventually, I started failing my classes because I was not using the resources that were at my disposal. Eventually, people saw my struggle, and they helped me get into the VRC, where I actually learned to like it, and I loved the VRC. They had a lot to offer. The student sports specialists, they motivated me, and they got me to pass all my classes. Eventually, I started keeping a 4.0 in my second semester, and I started to get out in the activities that the VRC offers. Such activities as like cycling for veterans, going out shooting at the range, simple things like that, just going out for drinks or what have you, unit cohesiveness. So as I learned to adapt, I learned how to serve my community. As serving my country, I learned to serve my community by, I'm the vice president of Las Positas College. I never expected that. I thought I was a failure. And eventually the VRC led me to success, and I became the vice president of our Las Positas Community College for Veterans. My biggest mission at our VRC is to find people like me, find people who think they're failures, find people who are struggling, and to snatch them up and tell them that they're loved, they're cared for, and they have help. And with this bigger grant, it's going to help me find these people. I have not found them yet, but complacency kills. And once I let my guard down, someone will kill themselves.
Thank
And
you.
just a quick point of clarification. I assume both of your comments are related to the budget request that advocates for more funding for veterans services across the system.
Yes, I apologize for not clarifying that.
64.
Right, I want
Got
to
it.
make sure that it's there.
Okay, I have Jason Geisler, followed by Nancy Montgomery and Todd Steffen.
And thank you. So I'm also going to speak on behalf of the Veterans Resource Center funding. It's my intention right now to not only share my story, but to help you view through a different lens and to help you kind of understand where we're coming from and why having a strong VRC in California Community College campus is extremely important to us and our veterans nationwide. A little bit about myself. I spent almost 9 years in the Navy. Electrician by trade, survival instructor by shore duty, got out, became an Oakland police officer, and was a cop for 2 years until I got into a motorcycle accident. 8 years, 7, 8 years, it's been 8 years now, 7 years ago. I dabbled in college. I went and got my pre-algebra and all this stuff that I was really rusty on. Then I left college, stayed out of it for a few years, and then decided to come back. The easiest transition for me was when I went to a private college, and it was an easy transition. That's the only reason why I went, because it was easy. Unfortunately, that school is no longer open, and I saw those kind of signs coming, and so I made the jump to Las Positas College. And the reason why I chose Las Positas College at the time was because I have a friend there who you'll hear from today, and I was immersed into that environment at the VRC, and it was like being back around my brotherhood. Whether it was Brothers in Blue or Brothers in Arms in uniform, that environment is what attracted me to the college, as well as the amazing faculty and staff and the stellar reputation of the college. Aside from myself, there's a lot of people in the service and military who get out that suffer from things like PTSD or mental disorders, social disorders, that don't have the ability to go somewhere where it's just a bunch of 18 and 20-year-olds and have a legitimate social connection with them. It's just not possible for some people. And so that's why having a strong VRC in every college is important, because we've got 22 veterans today that are taking their own life because I believe, in my personal opinion, that they're no longer connected to a community, no longer connected to something that they believe in. They don't have the purpose and the drive to do something that they fought for. They feel isolated. They feel like they maybe no longer can contribute. And just having, like you had heard from Desi, having the ability to have VRC gave him
30 seconds.
a little bit of purpose and gave him direction in life, and it literally probably saved his life. So we're not just talking money here, we're talking lives. And it's not just a good idea, but I feel it's our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nancy Montgomery, Todd Steffen, and Michelle Pope. If you could come forward. Go ahead, Ms. Montgomery.
Hi, I'm here in support for the Veterans Funding. My name is Nancy Montgomery. I am the director of the Irvine Valley College Veterans Center and Health Center. I actually wrote the proposal that we're sending forward, and I wrote it because there's 12 of us that are pretty much considered experts in the area that sit on this Chancellor's Regional Board, and we kept talking about it, so it was time that we put it in writing and put down our thoughts and the expertise that went into this and what we're doing. I wanted to bring to you, I'm a registered nurse. I'm the only registered nurse in the California colleges that actually cares for veterans. I kind of believe I am the only nurse that cares for veterans in the nation in the college system. So it's kind of different. But running these veteran centers as a nurse is a different thing because they're not used to having nurses in there. I believe in holistic care for the veterans. We look at mind and body. I run a complete one-stop, but I look at medical, I look at psychiatric services, certifying, voc rehab, tutoring. We do academic counseling. We do meet and greets, orientation, suicide prevention every semester. But I also collect data. So I'm here to share just a little bit of that data because I think it's important for you to understand the difference that these veteran resource centers make in our veterans' lives. In the last year, when I first came in there in my current job, this is my second Veteran Resource Center that I have actually set up, implemented, and wrote the whole guidelines and program for. I did Cerritos College in the beginning with a FIPSI grant that I wrote. This funding, this new center I have no funding whatsoever, so I have to go out and write grants to get this funded. So in 2014, I did a survey, and two of the significant points that I want to make here is it's a 36-question survey, anonymous, sent out by our research department at the college. Psych services have been helpful. In 2014, they said 35% was yes, strongly agree. In 2016, strongly agree is 77%, because I have a psychologist there 4 days a week. Another question I wanted to show you is that the Veterans Resource Center has helped me remain in college. 2014, it was 70%. 2016, 87%. I have an 11% increase in persistence rates since 2014 till 2016. That's huge. Usually you look at, in that type of data, you look at 2 to 3% being really outstanding. 11% is beyond outstanding there. We're looking for categorical funding that's going to sustain our veteran resources centers. To set these up with just a grant process is really not really going to be good for us. So it's important that we do that. We're looking at medical conditions that are hearing loss. There's a 1-year wait in the VA to even get an audiologist to look at. Mental health services, 6 months to 9 months wait to get an appointment with a therapist. High incidence of medications that are being prescribed, and there's no female services for our veterans. We have to implement these programs to give them these collaborating services, to coordinate with these outside services, and make sure that they're cared for in one stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Montgomery. Todd Steffen, followed by Michelle Pope, and then R.J. Ray, if you could come forward.
Yeah, and my name's Todd Steffen. I'm the coordinator of the Veterans First program at Las Positas. You've heard, or you will hear from various student veterans. I think their stories say it all, how important a veterans center is, and I'm completely supportive of the funding. I'm lucky where I'm at college, and I've gone through a few presidents and some chancellors, like at many community colleges. Luckily, all of them have been very supportive of the veterans program and also the community. But unfortunately, not all colleges are the same. I could go up just a few miles north or south, and there's some colleges that are having vet centers, but they're either trying to run them with work-study students. And nothing against the VA work-study program. It's a phenomenal program, but they shouldn't be running veteran centers. We don't ask EOPS students to run their programs for financial aid. So, and the other thing is I've seen some centers where it's a small, like the funding saying it's a broom closet. So it really goes back to having staffing, which requires funding, as many of us know, and permanent funding, because staffing has to be well-trained. I know one of the vets mentioned how just as simple having someone who's fully educated and knows our system, and how great the community college system is to give these men and women opportunities to fulfill. And one thing, I'm very proud of these student vets that have come today, because I know they have lots on their plate right now. So thank you for you guys, your service, and then also really pushing this important item. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Pope,
Hello.
followed by R.J. Rahe and Diane Ferguson.
Hello. I'm here also to speak on behalf of the Veterans Funding to community colleges. My backstory is I'm also in the Navy, big old Navy group. I was a nuclear operator, electrician's mate. I was in charge of distributing electricity coming from the nuclear reactors to the whole ship. So I was in charge of someone's Xbox gaming and their showering, essentially. So you're welcome. And I spent 6 years in there. And afterwards, most nukes, you'll never find very many nukes going to community college. We don't have to transition back to school. Usually our jobs will take us back into an industrial environment. However, if you want to explore other options, you eventually will find yourself sitting back in this classroom again, except now you're no longer surrounded by your peers. You're surrounded by young kids who are experiencing life for the first time, whereas we already experienced our life and we're ready to take the next step. The great thing about the Veterans Center at the Las Positas School is that it not only provides a little haven where you can speak your language, you can sit around with your former comrades and your friends, and you get to unwind. You get to feel like you're at home again. You don't have to feel like you're put in a box in a classroom and asked questions that maybe you really know firsthand what those questions mean, whereas you're listening to the opinions of other kids that you respect, because you've learned to respect that in your career. But at the same time, it's really hard just to sit there and share your story. So the Veterans Center not only provided that place, but also the resources. After I left the Navy, I tried to go to school, but the process was so difficult. You had to jump through so many hoops. People didn't know the right answers. You didn't know where to go. And after a few colleges of having the runaround, you finally get a sense of, well, maybe this is really not for me. So coming to California and going to Las Positas, it was a clear path. This is what I need to do. This is where I need to go. This is all the things I need to do to achieve my goal. I am a step away from getting my bachelor's degree, and hopefully with this program I will be jumping into my master's. So really I could atone my success to having this program for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, R.J. Rahe, please come forward. Diane Ferguson and Patricia Dorange Martin. Go ahead, R.J.
Once again, thank you for letting us all be here today. It's an honor to be here again. I was here a couple months ago, a lot of familiar faces that I see. My name's R.J. Rahe. Unfortunately, not really unfortunately, but I wasn't in the Navy like the large group that's behind me. I was in the Marine Corps. I was in 0311. For those of you that don't know what that means, I was an infantry Marine. I deployed 4 times. I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years. And that's my little backstory on the Marine Corps. When it comes to the Veterans Resource Centers, like everybody else said, it truly is important. It's one of those places where we can go when nobody understands what we've seen or what we've been through. There's things that I've seen and done that I hope my daughters and other people's children never have to see, that I hope your children never have to see. And we fought for that. We did our time. And just having that center where we can go and speak to fellow veterans, excuse me, and so like Michelle said, speak our language. It's from, as much as people don't like it, from cursing or just talking in general, that's how we communicate. We know our people, and we're trying to integrate back into this civilian world. We left, and as our friends and everybody else has moved on for the past 5, 10, people, 20 years, they've progressed, and we've kind of done our thing that nobody understands, and we're kind of going back to their world now. So going to a school where we're surrounded by 18 and 19-year-olds, and I'm going to be 25 in a couple days. And going back, being 6 and 7 years older than these kids, we had 9/11 the other day, and seeing how these kids were like, oh, yeah, I'm not into that, I'm not interested in stuff like that, that kills me. That was one of my deciding factors to join the Marine Corps, was seeing those towers fall on that day, being 11 years old. And having that Veteran Resource Center where I can go and in some ways complain to guys, hey, these kids don't even know what 9/11 is. Just, hey, no, brother, don't worry about it. We did our time, we fought because we knew what was important. Just do you and worry about you. I needed that day. Hearing these kids that don't care frustrates me. It makes me angry. It makes me mad. But having that support system in the Veteran Center means the world to me. And now coming back as a civilian, I've served my country, and I'm trying to serve my community as a police officer, and I'm on the VRC as well. I'm one of the officers, and I do the VA work study. And like Todd said, it's just, Todd asks me every day, and he's wondering, oh, when are you leaving? When's the next police interview? Because I'm interviewing day after day, and not saying what to do with the money or what have you, but it's true. We do need a full-time staff there. So, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Ferguson, followed by Patricia Dorange Martin and Mary Nelson. Come forward.
Hi, I'm Diane Ferguson. I'm with Los Medones College. I'm an Air Force veteran. I was also an ombudsman for the Navy and the Coast Guard. I came to Los Medones College in 2007 and became their certifying official and unofficial Veteran Services Coordinator, as well as my other duties, which Veteran Services was only supposed to be 10%. I also am a transcript evaluator. I do graduation and our nursing program. Student veterans add diversity and value to our campus population. Their military experience has given them a strong sense of maturity, motivation, and discipline while providing them with outstanding leadership qualities and mentoring skills. As these veterans transition back to civilian life, many will utilize their education benefits at community colleges. For the majority of returning veterans, attending a community college may be their first experience in higher education, and the transition from military to college can be quite challenging. From PTSD to traumatic brain injuries, loss of camaraderie, financial aid stressors, difficulty in navigating the bureaucracy of VA and other government paperwork in order to receive their benefits, the length of absence from school, 4 or more years between high school or the last college course, can lead to the necessity of remedial and or refresher courses, and the age difference in life experience between the veteran and the average college student are just a few of the reasons that each campus needs a VRC. We were fortunate enough at Los Medones College to get a generous grant from the Sentinels of Freedom and PG&E. Unfortunately, this did not include funding for the administration side. This is done through the generosity of the Admissions and Records Department and is mostly operated by our work-study students. We try to bring in outside services as much as possible. I do that with my connections on my own through my own military veteran services. I'm a board member for the Delta Veterans Group and stand down on the Delta.
30 seconds.
Our VRC gives access to our veterans to computers, printers, copiers. It's a relaxing atmosphere for our veterans to study and network. There's financial aid information. We have dedicated veteran counselors that have time in there for drop-in visits 2 days a week. We have priority registration, but these services cannot continue without administrative support, without a budget.
Time.
Thank you. Patricia Dorange Martin, followed by Mary Nelson and Julie Bruno.
Good afternoon, distinguished board members. I'm Patricia Dorange Martin, and I'm the coordinator of the Veterans Resource Center and Services at Pasadena City College. I'm the wife of a veteran, and my son returned from Iraq in 2010. The Chancellor's Office has stated that there are approximately 70,000 veterans and dependents attending California community colleges. And when you figure in their benefits, they're bringing in over $5 million to the state. So the importance of fully funding Veterans Resource Centers is not without positive economic impact. At PCC, we are so fortunate that we have a very robust model veterans program. It has lots of services and has been strongly supported by our board and our community. We were one of the first 12 VRCs in the community college grant, which, by the way, had no funding, just a lot of goodwill and support. But not all community colleges are the same. At PCC, we not only provide academic services like computers, academic counseling, but we also collaborate with our community partners to provide our student veterans with wraparound services. So what do we do? Okay, so we have a veterans case manager, additional mental health services, one-on-one veteran tutors, community mentors, a VA vocational rehabilitation counselor, VA benefits specialist, women veterans services, housing referrals, financial management services, just to name a few. Not all Veterans Resource Centers have services. Some just have benefits certifying services. Good veteran services not only impact student veterans academically, like Nancy's data shows, but they also save lives. Yes, we save lives. Many of our veterans report that without our centers and our services, the support, the networking, and the camaraderie that our centers provide, that safe haven, they would not have made it. They would have dropped out of school, they would have dropped out of life, and many of them contemplate suicide. We help them academically and much more to assist them to succeed at transitioning back to civilian life. Like the current funding proposal that's on the governor's desk right now for funding dream centers on all community college and state college campuses, we are asking you to categorically fund Veterans Resource Centers and their staffing on all community college campuses for those student veterans that stepped up, put their lives on hold, and gave service to our country. They now need us to assist them to get back to their lives, moving forward and getting their degrees and careers back on track. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me call up Mary Nelson, Julie Bruno, and then I have Mara Javins as the last speaker.
Hello, my name is Mary Nelson. I was in the Navy for 5 years on board an aircraft carrier, USS Enterprise. I was on top of the flight deck, directing aircrafts, working with multi-million-dollar aircrafts to park them, launch them, to go and drop weapons on the bad people. So I got out in 2012 and I went to a community college that did not have a Veterans Resource Center. And I felt very alone. I felt like I was the only veteran all on campus. I had no idea there was even another veteran. I went to that school one semester, and a family friend told me about Las Positas. So I said, okay, let me check it out. And I walked in there, and I actually felt not alone for the first time since I had been out. I felt like I could make friends, that people understood what I had seen. The first semester I was at Las Positas, I got a 3.2, which for me is pretty amazing. I had learning disabilities growing up as a child, so a 3.2 for me was outstanding, and I kept up those grades, and I was able to transfer. But since then, I actually was a VA work study for Todd, and I decided to stay with him, and because of the environment that the VRC brought to me, and I didn't feel the same when I did transfer. To not have that tight-knit group of that VRC and having that one-shop stop, having a counselor there, having people brought in from the outside, VA Palo Alto coming to our center and giving flu shots, like just taking those simple steps would make the world of a difference to just one person of not feeling alone. And that speaks numbers to the 22 a day that do take their own lives. And I feel like if every school had a VRC, that number would decrease tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Bruno. Go ahead,
Good
Julie.
afternoon, Chancellor Skinner, President Baum, Vice Chancellor Estolano, and board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am the president of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. I just wanted to offer that the Academic Senate very much supports this budget proposal. It really includes some critical funding for things like mental health, veterans resource centers, faculty, professional development for all of our faculty and staff, and of course part-time faculty support, which is critical. There's also a number of things in this budget proposal that allow us to gain some traction and do some really good work. We have a lot of initiatives ongoing right now in the system, and they are sort of in a little bit of sort of silo places. We'd really like to take this next year to really bring together some of those initiatives and do some work that's really going to kind of fit them together well. Just an example, I think Mario Rodriguez, Vice Chancellor Rodriguez, brought up was that the development of OER will really help us to implement Z degrees, which will really then increase pathways for our students to be able to get through at very low cost or no cost ways to their associate's degrees. Finally, there is 3 critical pieces in this budget proposal that will really help for full-time faculty hiring, for the pathways to community college teaching, and the EEO funding. These 3 pieces will really allow us to increase diversity within our faculty ranks and also recruit maybe some of our current students to come back and teach for us. And again, it's just building up really the excellence, again, that we've always had in community colleges around teaching and learning. And I think those 3 ones in particular will really allow us to gain traction. So we'd like to thank the Chancellor's Office for the collaborative nature of the development of this budget proposal. We think it's a very good one, and we really do ask your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And my last card, this is your last call if somebody else wants to speak. Mara Javins? Sorry if I
Yes, it's
mispronounced it.
Mara Javines. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Chancellor Skinner, President Baum, and Vice President Estolano, as well as the board members here today for allowing the opportunity for me to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, the SSCCC, and I'm very delighted to stand here before you today and say that we're very content with the continued support of students in this very strong budget proposal, this budget request, especially with the monies allocated towards mental health, veterans resource centers, and part-time faculty, the integrated library system, and the Promise programs especially. We feel that this will greatly improve the collegiate experience of countless students. We do notice that something we can possibly add or I guess approve upon. We ask that the Chancellor's Office Budget Work Group, as well as the Board of Governors, kind of support basic needs security, being food and housing. As many of you know, as the costs of attending community college, most of that is non-tuition expenses. So as rent rises, we see many students displaced, and especially in the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, many students face harsh realities of those sorts of crises. Students are left struggling to choose between more hours at work or more hours at the library. Spending money on groceries, or spending money on books, or just transportation to get to school. Although this is the final stage of, I guess, the budget request, and we're kind of hopping in a little bit late here, we ask that this board supports providing very basic human needs, food and housing security, so that students can focus on being students. And when students do exactly that, they succeed. Yes, this would, we ask that you support colleges to provide infrastructure with things like food pantries, community gardens, different workshops, and emergency grant funding, and even just allowing homeless students to shower in the facilities on campus.
30 seconds.
Okay, so that, these are all integral parts of being successful as a student, having the security of all those things. of food and housing. So yes, this is ultimately for the goal of student success, and we ask that you support this so that students may thrive in accomplishing their higher education goals and moving on to university and thriving in higher wage earning jobs and ultimately having a positive impact on the economy and the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful for the board to hear from the members of the public as we undertake this business. And it's particularly good to hear from the veterans who addressed the board too, because it was a topic that the board worked on very much in past years to try to mobilize statewide support for our veterans. And to see that it's now made it into our budget request is terrific. Before we move to a motion and then have board discussion, is there anybody that has a point of clarification that they'd like to request in the budget proposal? And then I'll entertain a motion, and then we'll have further discussion about that. Member Perry.
I want to thank first for the compelling testimony from those who serve and those who serve them. Thank you for that and for what you've done. And my question is, it may well be in another document, but I thought it merited highlighting. For the proposal for the Veteran Resource Centers, what's the baseline that we serve now, and what number would that increase with the additional monies?
The number.
I mean, in terms of serve, 70,000 people, there's 70,000 veterans in the system, but how many do we currently serve at the Veteran Resource Centers, and what would that increase be with the additional monies?
We know we have at least 70,000 veterans and their dependents in our community colleges, and we probably have less than 20 colleges that have some kind of resource center. So people are getting served, our veteran students are getting served by sort of one, Irvine Valley and Saddleback and Las Positas in the West District, but there are a variety of places they aren't being served. And we've heard the students talk about that. I went here and then I had to go here. So if we made it more systemic, we certainly, I'll use my generals. If we made it more systemic, we would serve more students in a logical and process-focused as opposed to someone coming in, someone having goodwill, and then offering those services. So we're doing some very good work from the Chancellor's office in relation to trying to get the services out there to everybody and talking about it, but the resources are really going to be important to kind of ramp all of that up in support of our veterans.
And so there's two, as a point of clarification, I think there's probably some debate on the exact number of colleges that have these centers. Some have a higher number, some have a lower number, but what we're trying to establish are some minimum thresholds that we know are, lead to a high quality student experience. And so that's what these dollars would do.
Chancellor?
And the only point I'd add is that in terms of the coverage that could be achieved with these funds, it'll be dependent on which districts come forward, what the configuration is in terms of the number of grants we end up establishing and who gets those grants. So I don't think we can definitively answer your question other than to say it would be a substantial expansion in coverage with a goal of getting towards the 70,000.
Is there anybody else that has a point of clarification they'd like to make in the proposal? Member Sumner?
Well, I'm trying to think if it's clarification or not taking my emotion. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, when you look at $25 million, I don't personally think that's enough money. But when I look at it from being on the Board of Governors, what I see is this is about the mental health aspect of it. If we don't take the time to educate and train the professors, the teachers, and everybody, so when you look at all this, we're talking about funding, we're talking about education, we're talking about mental health. It all ties together, that it really should be mandatory. So when I think of $25 million, I think every educator should know how to take classes. These veterans have sacrificed of life. They've taken the oath of office. They are our protectors. They are keeping us safe on college campuses. There's so many things that veterans do that we really don't take the time to look at. College campuses are safer because of veterans. They understand. We get angry when people don't understand September 11th, but that is why you need those veteran centers. I was very angry on September 11th when people were like, oh, I don't give a whatever. And I'm like, I couldn't even watch TV because I knew that that might have, done some triggers. But this is where we need to educate, to get the educators time to stop, to not have to go to meetings and say, let's have a class day where we understand, let's all talk together. We don't want you to know our story, some of them. We don't want you to know our pain. But what we do want to do is, I think the money, categorical funding, I think is important. I think it should be there, but with these other ones that are grouped in here, I would love to see us put together a team that really takes all of our resources as a Board of Governors, that we can make a difference in California, because we've got the most veterans. And with ITT closing up right now, that's going to be huge. We're going to have homeless veterans, and they get funding and money. So these vet centers, my hat is off, because I've gone to a couple of these vet centers. And I just want to say thank you for coming forward, but I can maybe answer some questions later too, but this is one of my top, obviously.
For points of clarification about the overall proposal, Member Hawkins and then Member Belinsky.
I want to make a motion to amend the budget request. So is that in order at this time?
Let's just make sure we know what, if there's any other clarification that we need to make. Member Avalos and then Member Khan. Yes, yeah,
after you-
absolutely.
yeah, right.
Because we got to get the motion, but I want to make sure that everybody understands what's being presented before we then make a motion on it.
Okay, so I do have a lot of questions, but I do have a point of clarification, which is, Vice Chancellor Rodriguez, the base increase, what is that?
So in this year's budget, we received $75 million, and in the prior year's budget, we received $267 million. And it's a way for the state to acknowledge, two primary things. One, during the recession, our apportionments line item, which is where, the bulk of the general operating expenses of the colleges come out of. We weren't provided COLAs during the recession. That hit to our budgets was about $1 billion. The increased contributions to shore up our pension systems, PERS and STRS, on the colleges will be over $400 million. So it's kind of a way for the state to acknowledge these increases that are easily calculable, and to say, we're going to help make sure that you're able to produce a high-quality student experience at your college. Because at a certain point, you lose COLA 1 year, it's maybe you can deal with that. But if you lose it 5 years in a row, then you have these huge obligations that are going to hit your books. At a certain point, that starts hitting that affects the quality of instruction you're able to provide.
So you have 75 million COLA, correct?
Yes.
Then you have 200 million for basic increase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I need.
Any other questions for clarification on the proposal? Member Vice President Estolano, Member Khan, and then Member Epstein.
Okay, a few questions. Going to the growth number, so you're proposing 2%, is that, if I'm correct? And it's 125 million in this. So let me I just want to make, this is a clarification. You noted that there's been growth in Southern California, but really not a lot in the north and part of the area, and some in the southern portion of the Central Valley. So just for everybody's understanding, when you put a growth number out there, it's the system as a whole can grow that much. So that if Southern California grows more, am I correct, then it will receive more because it's based on the census that they take of the number of FTE in the year. So it's projecting that number, correct? So it just means that, in a sense, that growth gets distributed to where it needs to be.
Correct. That's exactly right. So you'll see the Southern California schools, the Southern Central Valley schools are growing at 3 to 4%.
Correct.
And the Northern California schools are either remaining flat or slightly declining. But overall, it'll be 2%.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, because if those of us from Southern California understand the growth, we don't want to think we're being depressed in our growth because of slower growth in other parts of the state. Second question is on the VRCs, and thank you everybody for your testimony. It was incredibly moving. If there are 77 VRCs now and we need 36 to get to 113, if you take your 25 million, you divide that by 36, that's about almost 700,000 per center. Is the proposal anticipate having a VRC at the remaining 36 campuses? Is that the intent of this proposal?
I think the intent is to and maybe I won't answer it directly, but the intent is to remove the financial disincentive from not only having a Veterans Resource Center, but having a high quality Veterans Resource Center. So I think that's where the numbers, I've heard roughly 70 colleges have a Veterans Resource Center, but then when you talk to some individuals from those colleges, they'll say, well, we barely have you can't really classify that as a Veterans Resource Center. So what the real number is versus what technically there's a Veterans Resource Center room at a campus, might be two different numbers, but what we're trying to show is, we're trying to find some way to remove that financial disincentive while establishing some minimum
Right.
thresholds.
So for example, you may be setting a standard with the group with whom you've been consulting, some of whom testified here today, and that standard would be a grant-making pot of money that a college that wanted to achieve a VRC with that standard could access that grant funding.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And if I could just piggyback on that, Vice President Estolano, I think it's important when we put grants out for activities like this, that we make sure that we don't penalize colleges
Right.
that took the lead and through their own resources created a center. So it's a combination of, we want to incentivize more centers to form, but we also want to improve the quality and the support for existing centers. And so the grant structure will reflect both of those. Again, it wouldn't make any sense for us to only fund the new centers and leave behind those that have already carved out money from their own budgets to make it happen.
And then my last question relates to Ms. Javines' testimony regarding basic services, food, and shelter. And I'm reminded, I'm trying to channel Member Shaw, the report that was done about basically hunger on our campuses as well as at CSUs and UCs. There is no line item in this budget, and I'm also mindful that the way we give money out is very convoluted. So is there any guidance or any document that might be able to give us some number that we could add to this budget that would directly at least address the hunger issue for some of the best practices that Ms. Javines talked about, even a food pantry? And we had some testimony, I think, at our last meeting about that. So if we had at least a set of best practices that we could, around which we could construct a grant program, maybe this is the year to at least do a trial, since we have some data already.
I'm going to have Vice
Yeah,
Chancellor
just
Walker
ask-
come up and
just
talk
a
about
question.
recent efforts.
Before I try to make an amendment, I want to know there's something there.
It's only because Board Member Shaw has been emailing and texting me throughout this meeting. So, not to forget this.
I was channeling her.
So, in her wisdom of, in conversation around food and housing and security, we have put a small team together in student services, and we spent some time with the CSUs who are already trying to get ahead of this, as UC as well. We're talking with the chief student services officers. We did a very quick survey, and the survey was, do we have a problem with food insecurity and/or other issues around housing? And 100% yes, absolutely. So we're trying to do all the pieces we can, and then we'll put an advisory out to the student services individuals. We're going to look at our equity or SSSP resources. If you have it in your plan, could you do this? Food pantries, housing information, clothes closets, all the various things that we could do to be helpful in that regard, onwards to something if we find that we are deliberately not able to make inroads there after doing all the work we're doing in trying to survey and get things in place. Then I think we would probably needing to come back to some other opportunity for allocation, but we might be able to work through some of the SSSP and equity resources as well if we go back and really dig into their plan. So we're on this, and it just came to us in the last month or so, so we're taking it on.
Thank you.
Member Khan and then Member Epstein.
So thank you for everyone who came out on behalf of veteran students and those present to represent their interests. I mean, it's phenomenal to hear from all of you. My question to Vice Chancellor Rodriguez was related to the OEI item for $10 million of ongoing funds. It's estimated here that by the end of, from 2016 to 2017, we're anticipating 103 of 113 colleges will be using the Common Course Management software of Canvas. Does that include service that we strictly provide through us, meaning the subscription you mentioned, which covers our entire system? Or are those also colleges independently subscribing? Are we able to anticipate those colleges and say, hey, we're already getting this, so kind of let us pay for this? Is that something we're anticipating for, basically?
addition of those institutions that have already engaged in Canvas. And this would encompass, the entire system is what the projections look like.
It's on, Christine.
I think we're at a little over 90 colleges have already, made progress in terms of either passing resolutions or actually actively involved in securing Canvas. And so it's only a matter of time. We hope that all colleges will be using that resource.
Okay, thank you.
Member Epstein?
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions. This is a long list of additional items. I was wondering how it compares to prior years. Have we always gone in with a list this long, or is this different?
Yeah. It's about the same as every year, and most of these are things that we've kind of continually asked for. I think one of the things that we've talked with the administration already a little bit about on is, kind of prioritizing some of the base components of the request, which are the first like 5 or 6, which are growth, COLA, base increase, full-time faculty, part-time faculty, and then also Veterans Resource Centers. But we've always had a substantial list. It's a way to demonstrate what our needs are as a system.
Okay. I also, before I go on, I just want to thank all the veterans and their supporters that came in here today. That was very, very helpful and moving. Just the last thing. At the last meeting, when we talked about the budget, I asked about cybersecurity. And, as I read the technology and safety components, I didn't see any reference to that. Is there any money set aside for cybersecurity in this budget?
We actually received $3 million for security in this current year's budget, and we're actually engaged right now in terms of kind of having strategies encompassed within our tech center that will kind of be more broadly shared. There's already resources there that, when there are issues, we can send out individuals to help assist institutions to deal with those issues. But I think we'd like to make it certainly much more comprehensive and have trainings and regular workshops and just kind of a more awareness in terms of, particularly staff trainings and kind of better deal with, when you get email that's suspicious, kind of strategies and things that you should be doing to ensure that you're not compromising your system. And so, this is just going to be a regular type of activity that's going to be engaged in. But now that we have these ongoing resources, we're putting together a more systematic way to ensure that, there's a baseline understanding of what as a system we should be doing.
And just to follow up on that, so I think the security concern is covered, and I think at one of the next board meetings, we're going to be giving an update, and that's also something we talked about at the last board meeting, an update on the online education initiative and some of the tech initiatives, as well as cybersecurity.
Okay, great. So $3 million doesn't seem to me to even scratch the surface, given what we see going on out there in the world these days.
Member Abelos and then Member Haynes.
Vice Chancellor Rodriguez, so the total budget request is $793 million, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. All right, so when I look at COLAs, base increases, and full-time faculty hiring, that represents 47% of the total budget, $375 million. That seems kind of out of alignment.
Out of alignment with...
Well, relative to what we did last year, relative to what we did the year before.
So we received $267 million in base increase 2 years ago and $75 million this year. So it's not, the base increase amount is not necessarily out of alignment with that, and also considering that with the lack of purchasing power through foregone COLAs and then the additional pension obligation, that's $1.4 billion. So in that sense, to me, it's not out of alignment. Full-time faculty money at the May revise from 2 years ago was at, I believe, $75 million. It ultimately got reduced to about 62. And that's something that we've continually wanted to support. And so in that sense, it's not out of alignment. And then the growth is just one of those things that, we use a predictive number that both the Department of Finance and then most other organizations feels like it'll be around 1%. If that goes to 3%, that number will increase. So the short answer on that on COLA is, it kind of is what it is. the request is less about $1 and more about we want to make sure that we get the statutory COLA.
Okay. So what I'm worried about is we're not putting money aside for apprenticeships, for student success, for student equity, student disability, for student services, for CalWorks. There's a lot of things we're not putting money aside for, or we're not including in the budget. So my concern is, where's the equity and where's the student focus in this particular budget, right? Because when we look at this again, you say it's not of alignment, but 47% of the budget is not going to the ideas or the concepts, the concepts, programs that I've talked about, right? So basic skills, which we know 75% of the students that come in our community colleges require basic skills, and yet there's no funding for that, okay? So to me, those are the things I worry about, and when I look at this, it's not in par what we did last year, the year before, in terms of percentages.
Let's let the chancellor have a.
Sure.
Sure. Well, it's a great conversation. What I'd want to lend is the perspective that, there's always a balance in a budget between general purpose funds and categorical funds. And so these activities you're talking about, student success, student equity, basic skills, one way to address those issues is to categorize funding and give it to colleges with restrictions on it, saying you must use it for these specific activities. But let's keep in mind that when we provide colleges with general purpose funds, it can also support basic skills and student equity and student success. In fact, my expectation is that it does. And so I think that's part of the art of a budget proposal like this, is to find that balance between general purpose funds and restricted funds. And I think you'll hear from our colleges that when the budget gets too loaded towards the categorical programs and the restricted funds, that it can become challenging to run a college, because there are these different silos of funds that the college needs to find a way to integrate. And so I think what you see before you is an attempt to try to achieve a balance between those. Is it perfect? Will everybody agree with it? No, but I just wanted to keep in mind that there is a need for our colleges to get general purpose funds, and I think you'll hear that from them.
If I could, I want to go to Member Haynes, then Member Bowinsky.
A couple of things. So I really appreciated the former vets to speak to us. And I really appreciate the line item for the Veterans Resource Centers. Los Rios, 8 years ago, the board asked, we know we have vets who will be coming back who are on our campuses, what are we doing? And there was only one campus of 4 that really had a vet center. They had carved out space. In a matter of a year, there were some sort of room, and at that point, one of those rooms was literally a broom closet. And so, in many cases, for many colleges, we have carved out these spaces and provided resources, counselors, volunteers, as well as tried to carve staff, part-time, 10%, so that, and we need sort of this allocation of dollars to, one, make certain that the services we are offering are the services that are needed. And so I really support that particular line item. There's another line item that I'm very supportive of, and it's around campus safety. Sacramento City College, a little over a year ago, had a shooting, and at that point, we did not know whether or not it was an active shooter, and we had to close down the entire campus. What we found out many things as a result of that particular incident. There was a life lost of a student who was involved in the confrontation, but we found out that we couldn't lock our doors from the inside. We found out that there were different keying systems. We found out that the methods we were using were inadequate. And so this kind of line item will assist campuses before there's an incident to relook and to reassess how to keep students and faculty and staff safe. So I'm extremely supportive of that. And then finally, there is a line item on the open educational resources. And I was at the CCCT board meeting this past weekend, and there was a very lively discussion. And indeed, you mentioned the issues around these particular costs in terms of books sometimes exceeding our fees for our students. And so the discussion centered around how do we incentivize both faculty and staff to really look at, and what work will it take to make certain that this is an option for our students. Not just those students who are in rural settings, but those students who are in urban settings, to lower that particular cost. That would be a huge savings for so many of our students. So I'm really hoping that many of these dollars make certain, because they are in support of our students, and sometimes it doesn't appear so. Our students come with lots of challenges, and so this mental health item means that we can partner with folks in the community to make certain that our students have access to the help that they need. So what I want to make certain is that we put the face of our students on many of these line items, because they are in service of students.
Thank you, Member Haynes. Member Belinsky, then Vice President Estolano for a motion, and then Member Hawkins.
Well, I want to do a motion because I think we've moved from clarification to actual discussion.
Well, we have.
And so I want to move that we endorse the 2017-18 system budget request, and then I'd like to ask some questions after there's a second.
Second.
Okay, and then, I understand 2 members have indicated to me that they'd like to offer an amendment to the motion. So I wanted to, before we go on to questions, and say Vice President Estolano.
I move that the budget request be amended to add $5 million for the design and implementation of a grant program to address basic necessities such as hunger and provision of services in high-need areas, and that be guided by the latest research and best practices that our Chancellor's Office has been able to glean from its research.
Is there a second for that amendment?
I'll second that.
And then, just for clarification, Chancellor, is that able to be incorporated into the proposal?
Yes, it is. Staff can incorporate it before we forward it to the Department of Finance later this month.
Okay. And then, will the mover take that as a friendly amendment to the motion?
Thanks.
Member Hawkins?
Thank you, President Baum.
Right, yeah, I understand.
I would like to see 3 items increased in the request. After all, this is a request to legislature to see if they'll fund it. I would like to see an increase of the Veterans Resource Center to $75 million. I would like to see an increase of the mental health item to $50 million. And to support both of those initiatives, I would like to see the professional development line item increase to $50 million. In total, that's a $100 million increase.
Is there a second? And there's a second from Member Sumner. Now, a friendly amendment. Member Haynes, do you want to add $100 million to our budget proposal? Right.
I will follow my colleagues on this. Having worked in the legislature, it's a big ask, but I will support those amendments. It's a really big ask, you guys.
Right. Member Belinsky, you had some questions. Next.
Yeah,
So the motion as it stands, because both the mover and the seconder accepted the amendments, are $105 million in addition to what was already recommended by the Chancellor's staff. Go ahead, Member Belinsky.
My first question is based on some comments that were made before, but isn't it also true with things like basic skills, student success and support, and student equity right now, that those are ongoing funding? They're not funding we have to, at this point in time, request on an annual basis.
Right.
So it might also be helpful at some point in time, as we do budget requests, that we're reminded of money that the legislature has already appropriated that is ongoing funding, just to help build the full picture. And the other thing I think that as time goes on, because of what we heard today from a number of credible people coming up here with their life story and telling what helped them succeed, given the issues that they were dealing with, or the struggles even at times they were dealing with, is how would we move forward? And I personally like categorical funding because it gives the college an opportunity to focus on given issues like we have DSPNS, EOPS, CalWORKS Care, and other kind of categorical funds. I think that at some point in the future, we need to think about finding a way to get categorical funds for Veterans Resource Centers and for mental health work. I mean, in the mental health thing, and I know this is true, in the mental health thing, I know it says 1 in 4 students have a diagnosis of mental illness. My college just hired a mental health counselor in January, and she's swamped already, and we're not a huge college. And so I think if there was categorical ongoing funding that the colleges could count on, and always categorical funding entails that the college write a plan, and that plan then be delivered to the state chancellor's office. Not so much that somebody up here is going to go through it and say, well, you can't do, but because it forces the planning initiative of how you're going to spend your funding and allocation. But I think given the setup today of who is coming to our colleges or who could come to our colleges, things like categorical funding in those two areas need to be considered, and I'd even like to hear at some point in time what that would take.
Member Sumner?
I just was going to say about categorical funding, because I know when we put numbers out there, I know it sounds like a lot of money. I know we'll take guidance from you, but they all tie together. And I would love to see these written here more where they all tie together more, because the mental health is with veterans, which is with this, is with that, with education. And that might be a way to sell it more, because your resources, a lot of them are on the campuses. We need to sometimes give them guidance and direction, but not in a punitive way, in an educational way. Have a day on a campus, where you could do something, where you could take that time to do it. We have to do more with less. Like, look up in these rural areas, what they do more with less. Yes, we're asking for more. We know we may not get it, but the reality is in front of us, it will save lives. And that comes into safety and security with the veterans and mental health, because you don't want somebody coming onto your campus. You have a lot of resources. That's why I'm proud to be on this board, but we need the categorical funding for vet centers on the community colleges. That was one of the things the Senate, when I went before Senate confirmation, I said, I want to see categorical funding. Let alone at the time did I know what the heck it was, and how much of a challenge it would be and how much pushback there would be. But as I've gone out to vet centers and having met some of these people, the passion, we do need it, but we need to help these college campuses and the educators and give them a little categorical. So say, for vets, you will get this, and work together. There's a lot of great programs, but I understand when we say a lot of money, you'll come back to us and say, okay, what are you smoking, maybe? But the reality is we need more. What will work? What can we ask for? But if we can put categorical in there too, then it might be okay. Yeah, we get a little bit less, but let's press on. So I just want to say thank you to the support and everybody here. I know that this is probably the first year we've really been focusing more on veteran issues. So I applaud this board and the leadership and of the community colleges. So I'm proud to be here.
Before, we're going to go to Member Avalos and Member Epstein, but I have a question too. Again, what was our request last year and what was ultimately approved in rough numbers?
Yeah, it's been about between under $1 billion and over $700 million over requests for the past few years. What was ultimately approved? And off the top of my head, I don't have the year to year.
We know we had the $200 million for the workforce that came through.
Yeah, but there was like a 4 or 5% increase, so that's like 400-ish million increase. But keep in mind, there's a lot of one-time dollars in the budget every year, the way this governor budgets, and so those drop off, so you can easily get another 300 million of ongoing funds available.
Before we go to the others, I just want to file something for the board. I actually am quite uncomfortable with just from the board table adding $100 million to a budget request. I don't think it communicates the right message to the legislature and the Capitol that we are somewhat seat of our pants about it. And so I just have a caution of that. If the motioner and the seconder are willing, I would like to divide the two motions, the initial budget request and then the supplemental budget request, into two different motions. So that, and let me file that away, but I'm going to ask that we do that for that. And then, but then we'll go to Member Avalos and Member Epstein.
Vice Chancellor Rodriguez, thanks once again. So if I'm on page 77 and I look at apportionments for 2016-17, it's 2.5 billion. What is that?
That's the general fund portion of the general purpose item. So the item in total is over $6 billion. What apportionments is made up of student fees, which is roughly $400 million, and then about $2.5 billion of property tax. And so to enable to support the $600 billion of general purpose apportionments of the colleges, the state kicks in about $2.5 extra billion.
So the question was brought up, which is basic skills. Can you tell me how much we're funding basic skills for 2017, 2018, please?
Yeah, and that's actually a good point I wanted to make. So if you remember in this year's budget, we received another $30 million, and it was one time and ongoing. So currently our 17-18 budget, and my apologies for not saying this at the beginning, already includes an augmentation for $30 million for our previously funded $20 million program. So our basic skills program is going from $20 million to $30 million on the natural, because in the current year, the state decided to fund $30 million more in those innovation programs. If you remember, in the June meeting, we approved the first round of those grants, and the state gave us a little bit more money for the current year and gave us a year to work out a new formula. So we're working out that new formula. So our next year's money is going to already go from the ongoing $20 million to $50 million. So we automatically get an increase for that program next
So
year.
in 2017, 2018, we're looking at 50 million
For basic skills, and it'll go out on a new formula that's partially based on outcomes.
Okay.
And that does not include the basic skills funding that's in our direct support for courses. So the $50 million supports administrative work to professional development and release time for faculty and staff to plan and other support services. But we also have, it's roughly 10% of our coursework is in basic skills, the last number I saw, and that we fund out of that apportionments item.
And last question, sorry. So the zero textbooks cost for $5 million, was that one time last year? It's one time.
One time.
So we have nothing for that this year.
That's where the OER, the $20 million for OER is supposed to come in. So the $5 million was to create statewide pilots. The $20 million would be allocated. The proposal, is to allocate money directly to the colleges for them to implement a plan to create pathways at each individual college.
Okay.
Member Epstein?
Thanks. I actually wanted to echo what President Baum said. My question is really about the process that resulted in this budget. Knowing how this system works, my guess is that there was a lot of collaboration with a lot of different interests that involved a lot of trade-offs, and this is what the consensus was of the process. Is that an accurate description of what happened?
That is, and so just to clarify, 1.2 is that, President Baum mentioned last year how much the increase was. 2 years ago, when we seen a significant increase, because remember, it's not only how much revenue the state generates, but also the way the Prop 98 is calculated. So if it's a test 1 year or a test 2 year, a test 3 year, you could see drastic swings. And so 2 years ago, we actually did see roughly an $800 million increase a year. So that's why I wanted to kind of hit that. Do I think we're going to hit 800 next year? I doubt it. But I just wanted to have a backstop there. So if we did, this board was fully considered of the requests they had.
Yeah, but I was asking a different question. I was asking about the process. I mean, can you just, hum a few bars on the process that led to this?
Yeah, so the process is we invite, the first step in the process is we create a budget work group that's made of all the representatives on Consultation Council and their Sacramento advocates, their system advocates. We run through the prior budget requests and also take requests for new items that should be considered. And we have a couple-hour meeting, and the first run through is just to kind of get the concepts, and the second time we meet, it's to kind of put numbers to those concepts and those ideas, and then we bring those concepts and then those dollars not only through the budget work group process, but also to Consultation Council and then the board. So it's very transparent, very public.
Before we go on, I do want to acknowledge the presence of our Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, who is here to address the board on an item before our agenda. If I know this is, we're in the middle of an active dialogue on the budget, which is the most, second to hiring the chancellor, is the next most important thing that this board does. Right. So, but I would like to see if the board were willing that we can take a break from this and resume it so that we can have we won't feel rushed in our consideration of this. And so we're going to put a pin in this. We're going to come back to it. Member Hawkins, Member Sumner, Member Belinsky are all on deck to add to the conversation. But we're going to move to item, and I do want to take a short break after we hear from Secretary Padilla on item 2.4 on the agenda, which is a proposed resolution on voter registration and civic participation. And so I turn it over to the Chancellor.
All right. President Baum and board members, this action item proposes the adoption of a resolution in support of civic engagement and voter registration. This registration is part of a nonpartisan statewide effort to increase voter registration that is being coordinated by a number of groups, but with key leadership being provided by California's Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and we're honored to have him here today to present. So please come forward. And before you get started, I'd just like to take a brief moment to also recognize and thank you for the leadership that you provided around transfer reform in California. Your landmark legislation, SB 1440, has really started a transformation in our colleges in terms of building out improved and expanded pathways for our students to transfer to CSU. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that legislation. Our board will have an opportunity to hear an update on that, on our implementation of the associate degrees for transfer tomorrow, but I couldn't let this moment pass without thanking you for those efforts. So with that, if you'd like to, the resolution's in the board agenda, so the board has it with them. If you'd like to speak to this issue, that would be great.
Sure, and I will respectfully try to be brief because I know you have a long agenda, including getting through the budget. That's pretty darn important, so I appreciate the indulgence of taking a time out from the previous item to allow me to speak to this particular item and kind of also put it in the context. You know, you bring up the transfer legislation that we worked together on a few sessions ago, and the point of all that wasn't just, you know, the sort of the bottom line, the nuts and bolts of how students come to and transfer out of community college, but just trying to do better by way of our students as they're not just trying to earn that certificate or earn that degree, but just try to improve upon their lives, right? So I think if we continuously remind ourselves of why we all do what we do, it's ultimately about the people that we're serving. And while the UC and the CSU, and especially the community colleges, go about educating not just young people, but especially young people to try to do our part in making them more constructive members of society. I'm here now with my hat as Secretary of State to remind us that part of that training, part of that education is facilitating young people's participation in our democracy and improving their lives in that particular way and strengthening our communities in that way as well. So I want to begin by thanking you for this opportunity and recognizing the leadership and the support that you've lent to the students who have kind of led this movement from the beginning to work with my office and with your blessing, the 72 districts and 113 colleges throughout the system to make this the strongest civic engagement effort of any post-secondary education system in the nation. With this resolution before you, you will help us educate and empower the more than 2 million students who attend these colleges and again are seeking not just to improve their lives through education and a certificate or a degree, but being empowered to have their political voice heard in our democracy. And why is it important? It's important because just look at the last November 2014 general election for a data point. November 2014, only 8% of 18 to 24-year-olds participated in the election of those that were eligible. That means 92% didn't, for a wide variety of reasons. But the bottom line is we got a lot of work to do, folks, if we take our democracy seriously. We can argue whether it's easy enough or too difficult to be a registered voter, whether it's easy enough or too difficult for those who really put the effort in voting by mail or showing up at their polling place. But the results speak for themselves that we have more work to do. And what better place to do it than the higher education segment of the most populous state in the nation that is teaching, what is it, 72, 73% now of California students in higher education. If they're not coming to us, let's go to them. And by going to them, that means working through you to get to them on those particular campuses. I'll give you just one example. There's a wide variety of reasons why young people who are eligible aren't registered or maybe are registered but not regularly voting. And far too often it's because they were not necessarily brought up with the tradition of voting. And I look at myself as just one example. When I was growing up, my parents rarely talked politics at the dinner table, and they certainly never took us with them to the polls every other November. Why? Not because they didn't value that or think that was important. My parents are immigrants. They were legal residents, but they weren't citizens yet, so they weren't even eligible to register and to vote. It took them about 3 decades to finally take those steps, and they've never missed an election since. But I think to myself, the students in our K-12 system that may be in a similar situation, and Lord knows we could be served well by investing more in civic education at that level too, but even our community college system, where there's people who were raised and their parents weren't participants because they weren't eligible, or maybe they were eligible but weren't registered, or maybe they were registered but just not very frequent voters, it's incumbent upon us to work together to create this cycle, to instill this tradition and value of civic responsibility. And this resolution will help us do exactly that and reverse the trend of low registration rates and low turnout. So thank you to the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's Office, as well as members of the California Students Vote Project Coalition, which include the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, the 3 nonprofit organizations, CalPERC, the Public Interest Research Group, California Common Cause, and Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the Asian Law Caucus. These groups not only recognize that a healthy democracy must include the voices of California's young leaders, but they have helped tremendously in identifying the what we call best practices. Well, bottom line is the proven strategies that will guide our activities here going forward. I also want to recognize State Senator Ben Allen, who currently chairs the Senate Elections Committee, former board member and board president of the Santa Monica and Malibu Unified School District, who was pivotal in ensuring that Santa Monica Community College District was the first to sign on to the MOU with our office. Dr. Larry Galizio, president and CEO of the California Community College League, has also sent out a letter in support of our efforts. And today, Chancellor Skinner, along with myself and the Lieutenant Governor, will communicate these steps that we're taking to the districts throughout the state and informing everybody how we can work together to implement these best practices that I mentioned as proposed by the California Student Vote Project. And they include, for those of you who like detail, and if that budget discussion is any indicator, a lot of you really like detail. It means things like going above and beyond just a poster on the wall and a rally on the campus, right? It means things like identifying the optimal time periods to communicate with students. students who lead busy lives. It means utilizing your student portals to register, to offer an opportunity to register to vote, kind of like the automatic registration that we're going to be doing at DMV or the online registration that's already available. It means utilizing your communication platforms like sending all campus emails and other notifications as gentle or not so gentle reminders to students and staff for that matter when we're up on the voter registration deadline, or the fact that Election Day is the next Tuesday, along with the proven practices of on-the-ground organizing and outreach. Taken together, we're going to move the needle, and it's great to have the support and enthusiasm, not just of students and student organizations, but starting today, the leadership from the top. And that top-down commitment, that top-down cooperation is going to be so critical. And last but not least, I just want to acknowledge the students who are here in the room, or maybe watching or listening online, because we're going to need their help to implement. We're going to need their help to get the word out and to, again, do the work of getting the students registered that are eligible and voting not just this November, because it's an exciting one, right? Anybody here, we're having an election this November? We may be electing another president of the United States. But the fact that every election is important, and depending on the issue that you care about or impacts you or your family the most, maybe it's the governor's race in 2018, maybe it's a local mayor's race, or a school board race, or the congressional district that you live in. Every election is important, and with 17 propositions on the statewide ballot, we know that there's important public policy being decided at the ballot box too, and we need more and more of young voters' voices being heard, and that happens when they cast their ballot. So thank you for sharing with me in this historic commitment, and look forward to working with you in the years ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary of State. We sincerely appreciate you bringing this to our attention, especially this is Constitution Week. And I'm very interested in seeing ways that we can also improve not just voting, but civic participation at all levels. You mentioned the 2014 election. It's even worse numbers when you look at local elections, school board elections, and city elections. And we vitally need to have students participate in those as well, and participate in our democracy through their service on juries, through their paying of taxes, their service on local commissions, for running for office themselves. And this is one step in that, and we all have, we treasure our constitutional rights, and if we don't exercise them, we risk losing them. To open the conversation, I want to invite maybe our newest member, DeLilly, to see if he would like to make the motion on this resolution, and then open it up for conversation.
I'd love to, and I also would like to add a comment, but I'll start off with the motion to approve this.
Second.
And the second by Member Estolano. Member DeLilly.
Thank you. First off, I wanted to thank you for your efforts. That 8% number is astonishing, and hopefully we can get that up. My question, rather suggestion, is has it been considered, because I'm looking on the bottom of 37, the strategies, including making voter registration links highly visible, campus emails. I was wondering if it's been considered to implement it on a campus orientation, or even on the Open CCC application, or something where I'm assuming if visibility is the primary goal, somewhere where everyone will have to see it in their application process.
Absolutely. I think the strategies that are listed start with including but not limited to. So if there's a particular idea that you have that campuses may even pilot first and demonstrate success, and then expand to other campuses, we're more than willing to consider those fresh ideas.
First off, I neglected, we should go to members of the public before we then continue with board discussion.
Okay, we have two members of the public that would like to speak, Mara Javines and Jesse Foster.
Good afternoon again. Thank you to the board for welcoming me again to speak. And also thank you to the Secretary of State, the Honorable Mr. Alex Padilla, for coming out today and also engaging in on those efforts. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Student Senate once again, and we do recognize the very valuable outcomes of a project like this, and our hope is that the board express support on this resolution in particular, as well as including the collaboration of the Student Senate with the intention of influencing habits of civic engagement and working towards the sustainability of these efforts. And it's been mentioned, we're not just looking at the presidential election, we are looking at midterms and districts, all the local type of elections, things that affect our daily lives most directly. So yes, it's the intention behind my comment here today is so that we have not a duplication of efforts, but rather a collaboration with all associated parties to kind of pool our resources together and especially since it's my belief that the student leadership across the state are an integral part to bridging and connecting all students towards engagement, especially in a time of such heightened disillusionment. So we urge the board once again to endorse these efforts, to support to endorse institutional support with our local associated student organizations, as well as the strategies included, like the increased visibility and the things that Mr. DeLilly mentioned. So, yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Foster, and then followed by Lynette Nyaga.
Is this thing on? Okay. Hello, I'm a student here at Woodland Community College and also a director on the Student Senate Board of Directors. I'd also like to urge your support on this resolution. The 8% number is just, ultimately that's a failure of this institution as a system. We need to be training our students to become actively civically engaged. Otherwise, we're really not doing our total job, which is to prepare them for all areas of life, not just employment, but also to participate in public life and to make meaningful contributions to their community. If they're not voting, that ultimately we need to look at sort of what our institutional practices are. So I would like to highlight a report from the CalPIRG, Millennial Online Voter Registration. That report highlighted the importance of institutional, the colleges themselves investing labor hours into this, not just making a few token efforts near the election, but really viewing it as a long-term solution, something that needs to be dealt with every year, and that labor hours actually need to be allocated to it. It cannot be simply left on student groups and the times in between to try to deal with this, because frankly we have a lot of things on our plate. So I would like to applaud the Secretary of State for bringing this to you. It gave me chills, so please support this resolution. Thank you.
Great. Lynette Nyaga.
Good afternoon. I'm Lynette Nyaga from the Community College Association, California Teachers Association. And I am thrilled to see two students sitting here with the Secretary of State endorsing this resolution. This is a wonderful thing. But I would also like to say that in 2012, when Prop 30 and Prop 32 were on the ballot, at our community, our colleges that we represented, we ran student voter registration campaigns. And we found that the online registration was much more effective for students and very quick. You just take care of it now. And if you remember, there was an expectation of how many 18 to 24-year-olds would vote. And we far exceeded that expectation in 2012. We'd like to do even better this year. So thank you very much for your resolution. I am going to be sending it to all of our colleges and ask boards of trustees to also be aware of this and support this. And the faculty and students, the trustees and the administration all work together for our civic engagement, because without that, we will really not go forward as a state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker card, Emily Rush.
Hi, I'm Emily Rush. I'm the Executive Director of CalPIRG, the California Public Interest Research Group, and I'm here in support of the Secretary and this board and of this resolution. I think it's incredibly important part of the mission of the community colleges to be encouraging students to participate in our democracy in all sorts of ways, including voting. And just to note on what the previous speaker said, we do a lot of work with students. We run voter registration drives and have for the last 30 years. And in 2012, there was a increased effort we saw on college campuses, particularly, I think, because of Prop 30 and the stakes involved. That was unprecedented in my experience doing this work for the last decade in California. And we didn't see the same excitement around 2014. There's obviously a lot of reasons for that, but I do think it's really important to keep that same level of importance around the voting, because we know it's habit forming. We know if you vote when you're young, you're more likely to continue voting. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from members of the board? Member Belinsky. Member Belinsky, and then Member
I'll
Sumner.
start by saying thank you to the Secretary of State for coming and taking the time to be here with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
One of the questions that I have is with one of the whereases as to whether this is actually happening. It says that about mid-page on page 39, the California Student Voter Registration Act requires every community college and CSU campus to allow its students to register to vote during the class registration process using a link to California's online voter registration system. Are our 72 districts doing that?
I don't know if all 73 are, but there are quite a, we haven't done a survey, but when I go to those pages, I do see a lot of those links. It's very common.
Yeah, because I think that'd be helpful to have all districts, the 113 colleges, because it's saying every time you register for classes, it's not just to apply to come to the college.
Thank you. Member Sumner.
I'm just really excited about this because I know, coming from a veteran's perspective, we get very angry when people don't vote. It's like you don't have the right to complain if you don't vote. So this really, I'm sorry, but it really excites me with this. But what concerns me is when I was talking earlier is people on the college campuses don't even know what the Board of Governors is. They don't even know simple, politics or simple things. So I'm excited about this. The more we can get the word out to the students to realize they're our generation, the millennials, we need to do more with this. And I think this is wonderful. I'm excited. It doesn't matter what party you are. I think you need to vote.
Thank you.
Vice President Estolano and then Member Khan.
And Mr. Secretary, say thank you for coming today, and thank you for the resolution. We really appreciate it. I participated in a high school civics organization, YMCA Youth in Government, and it transformed my life. And the motto is really true. Democracy must be learned by each generation. And I've certainly lived by that. And I think your personal story about not going to the polls with your parents was very touching to me, because my parents would take me to the polls every time, and it was really formative for me. So I will tell you, democracy must be learned by each generation, but it's not just about learning, it's about engagement. It can only function if there's true engagement and empowerment. And the reason why we had such a much higher voter participation rate when Prop 30 was on the ballot was because people organized, but secondly, people understood the relevance to their experience. There is always relevance to our experience. It's just about those of us being able to educate those others, particularly young people, about their duties, their obligations, and really the tremendous gift that democracy can be for them. So thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. We're happy to participate.
Thank you.
Member Khan, I'll let you have the last word before we go to a vote. Did Member Conway? Oh, Member Conway, and I thought I saw Member Khan's hand, maybe not.
No,
okay.
just Conway.
Member Conway will have the last word before we go. One of our.
Student participation.
Thank you. I don't think I need this microphone on because I couldn't figure out how to do it. You know how to work this?
It's on.
I'm
It's
on?
on.
Okay. It's good to have help. Also good to see you, Mr. Secretary. I was curious because I know in the past there have been many efforts to increase voter registration in every area of California society. But it specifically mentions a project and these three groups. Are they the only ones that are participating in the initiative that you're working on, or are there others that would be able to participate, or?
No, there's many others involved, but these have taken the lead in not just conceiving the project, but like I said, identifying the proven strategies, the best practices that we're seeking to implement here.
And currently, it's, is there a set program, or is it just access to the campus to encourage students to vote?
Well, again, and the resolution is before you. The memorandum of understanding spells out more of the specifics that colleges can sign on to, and that we can all work towards.
So from a system level, we will be disseminating the electronic toolkit that the project has developed. It's a very robust toolkit, and encouraging the colleges to do that, and also encouraging colleges to enter into more formal MOUs that take a slightly higher commitment.
Okay. I seem to remember voter registration went up when the governor and Sutter made trips to college campuses. So maybe Sutter's available for this project too, and the governor will let him go. He seemed to have done a really good job on encouraging students to vote. So thank you, and always good to see you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor of the resolution as presented before the Board of Governors, say hello. Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. The resolution is passed. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary of State. We will take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 3:15.